Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Eric Hawkins stood on the back porch of his estate, feeling the early evening breeze brush against his collar. There was a crispness in the air early spring in the countryside. It used to be his favorite time of year, a signal that new beginnings and fresh starts were possible. But these past few weeks, he couldn't shake the nagging sense that something was fundamentally wrong in his life. He carried a certain reputation in the corporate world, a brilliant mind with numbers and finances, an incredible knack for spotting intangible market shifts, and above all, an unwavering sense of discipline that had propelled him to the top. This same discipline, however, now kept him awake at night, analyzing the smallest deviations in his routine or relationships. He'd built Safari Replicas Inc. into a profitable enterprise, manufacturing lifelike animal models for zoos and family attractions. Meanwhile, Todd, his older brother, had joined the company some years back as a co-partner. It made sense at the time. Todd handled strategic partnerships while Eric focused on the core business, product lines, and finances. Yet, standing here at dusk, watching the guest house lights flicker on behind the tall hedges, Eric couldn't ignore a twitch of suspicion. That guest house was supposed to remain empty tonight. Todd occasionally used it, but Todd had told him he was working late in the city. So why did Eric see shadows moving inside when he walked out onto the lawn 10 minutes ago? He reached into his pocket for his phone, tempted to text Todd, ask if he was back early. But something held him back. The truth was, an even bigger question had been haunting him for days. Why had Amanda's car been parked near that same guest house late last night? It was after midnight, headlights off, creeping away like a cat burglar. Amanda was Eric's wife of 6 years. She'd been a marketing director at a local tech startup for nearly 2 years, a job she claimed demanded countless hours at the office or traveling to conferences. It used to check out Eric's schedule was busy too, and they often just waved hello in the morning and good night at bedtime. But recently, Amanda's behavior changed. She'd vanish for hours with weak excuses. She avoided direct questions with tight-lipped smiles. And, ironically, Todd also seemed to drift in and out at odd hours. Eric had tried to dismiss the possibility that they might be connected. It seemed unimaginable that his own brother and his wife could be, no, that's insane. Yet the evidence was building. He stepped inside, heading to the kitchen. The overhead lights bathed the marble countertop in a soft glow. Amanda was at the sink, rinsing a few plates. She barely turned when he entered, as though she sensed his presence but was refusing to acknowledge him. "Hey," Eric said quietly, setting his phone on the counter. "How was your day?" Amanda tossed him a glance polite but distant. "Busy," she replied, her voice carrying an almost mechanical edge. "I just got in, actually. Had a quick dinner with some colleagues." Eric studied the back of her head. "Which colleagues?" She hesitated. "Just some folks from the office. You don't know them." He noticed her shoulders stiffen as soon as he asked. He decided not to press. He'd learned that pressing for specifics only triggered more evasion. She finished cleaning, turned off the faucet, then pivoted toward him with a tired smile that never reached her eyes. "Maybe we can do something this weekend," she offered. "I miss you." He forced a small smile, picking up a glass of water. "I miss you too." For a moment, they just stood there, a married couple in the hush of their home, yet the silent tension felt thick as molasses. Eric remembered the phone logs he'd checked that morning. Granted, he wasn't trying to be an overbearing husband, but he had been curious. Her call history showed a series of 10-minute calls to Todd's phone at bizarre hours. Todd had explained it away as family stuff or quick business check-ins. Amanda insisted they were sorting out some marketing initiative for Safari Replicas, but that didn't explain the calls at 1 in the morning. He broke the silence. "Hey, I saw Todd's SUV out in the driveway behind the hedges earlier. Did you happen to run into him?" Amanda blinked, her jaw tightening. No, I haven't seen him." She spoke too fast, Eric thought. "Strange," he mused. "I thought I saw, never mind." She wiped her hands on a towel. "Look, I'm exhausted. Mind if I head upstairs?" He nodded. Go ahead. I might stay up a bit. She hesitated, as if unsure whether to kiss him goodnight, then simply walked out of the kitchen, leaving him standing in the quiet. The following morning, Eric made a point to get to the office early. He'd always been punctual, but these days, being extra early let him review the books privately before the rest of the staff arrived. At about 7:30 a.m., his CFO, Ivan Carter, stepped in. Ivan was a lean, wiry guy in his mid-40s, who'd been with Eric almost from the start of Safari Replicas. They'd grown close over time, close enough that Eric considered him a friend, not just a colleague. Morning, boss, Ivan greeted, setting a cup of coffee on Eric's desk. You're looking a bit tired. Everything all right at home? Eric rubbed the back of his neck. Not exactly. I'm dealing with personal stuff. Ivan took a seat, crossing one leg over the other. Want to talk about it? Eric studied him, grateful for a trustworthy presence in his life. Let's just say I have a suspicion that Amanda and Todd are up to something. I can't quite pin it down. Ivan frowned. What kind of something? Eric exhaled. Something that feels like a betrayal. Ivan's eyes widened a bit. He clearly understood the subtext. Are you sure? Todd's your brother and your wife. I don't want to throw accusations around, Eric admitted, but I'd be a fool not to notice the signs. They vanish at odd times. They have phone calls that never make sense. And last week, I found receipts for fancy dinners and private resorts on the corporate card under Todd's expense line. Ivan's brow furrowed. A private resort? He never ran that by me. Supposedly, we only authorize that level of spending if there's a major potential client. Exactly, Eric said. I'm waiting to see if Todd's going to give me some explanation. But so far, he said nothing. Ivan pursed his lips. I guess the question is, do you want me to look deeper into the finances? I can trace every transaction, maybe figure out who Todd's meeting. Eric paused, then nodded slowly. Yes. Do that for me, discreetly. I don't want to stir up trouble if there's some small chance I'm misreading the situation. Ivan leaned forward, concern etched on his face. I get it, but Eric, be careful. If your gut's right, that's a serious betrayal. Eric forced a grim smile. If it's real, I'll deal with it, in my own way. That Sunday, Eric decided to test his theory with a direct, if subtle, approach. He invited Todd and Amanda to brunch at a small country inn just outside the city. The inn was known for charming decor, quiet atmosphere, and a cozy dining area somewhere that might coax more relaxed conversation. Amanda agreed to go. Todd tried to beg off at first, claiming he had some errands, but Amanda texted Eric that Todd would come just for a little while. That in itself felt suspicious. The drive was about half an hour from their estate, along winding roads lined with budding trees. Eric arrived a bit earlier, snagging a corner table in the inn's sunroom. He made sure to choose a seat that let him watch the entrance clearly. Soon enough, Todd and Amanda walked in together, laughing about something. Amanda's face dropped when she spotted Eric waiting. Todd's grin faded an instant later, as though he realized they looked too friendly. Eric stood to greet them, gesturing to the empty chairs. Glad you both made it, he said, forcing a warm tone. Looks like a nice day. Todd wore a casual blazer, hair combed neatly. He was about 5 years older than Eric, slightly shorter, but with a big personality that usually drew people in. Today, though, he looked guarded. Morning, man, Todd said, offering a half-smile. Amanda slid into the seat next to Todd without hesitation, crossing her legs. So what's new, Eric? He deliberately hesitated. Not much, just checking in with my wife and brother, hoping for a quiet, normal Sunday. A server arrived to take their orders. They each picked something from the brunch menu. Eggs, bacon, fresh fruit. Todd insisted on ordering a mimosa for Amanda, ignoring Eric's sideways look. Once the server left, Eric folded his hands on the table. So, Todd, how's that big client pitch going? The one you mentioned with the private resort suite? Todd froze for half a second, then shrugged. Oh, yeah, that. Still in progress. The client's a bit elusive. Eric tilted his head. Really? Who is it exactly? Todd coughed lightly. They're an overseas group, Not sure if they're fully legit yet, so I'd rather not jinx it by revealing anything too soon. You know how it is in business. Amanda sipped her coffee, eyes flicking between them. We probably shouldn't push, Eric. Let Todd handle it. He's good with these things. Eric felt a coldness seep through his veins. He recognized Todd's evasive manner, short sentences, vague references to not jinxing. It all reeked of dishonesty. Amanda's quick intervention only confirmed Eric's suspicion that she was covering for Todd. Sure, Eric said softly. I trust you, big brother. Todd gave a stiff nod, and Amanda forced a bright smile. The entire brunch was overshadowed by that tension. They made small talk about Amanda's marketing campaigns, Todd's so-called business expansions, and Eric's next product line of Arctic animal replicas, but none of it felt genuine. After finishing their meal, Todd announced he had to leave. Amanda insisted on riding back with him, explaining that her car was at Todd's place. Eric didn't bother protesting. He simply watched them walk out together, side by side, joking lightly as if they were a real couple. That night, Eric found himself lying awake around midnight. Amanda had gone to bed unusually early. He could tell something was off. Maybe the guilt was piling up, or maybe she was texting Todd from under the sheets. He slipped out of bed, deciding to get some water. He walked down the corridor quietly. As he passed Amanda's office, he heard a tiny whisper of conversation. The door was almost closed, but not quite. Tomorrow? I'm not sure if I can get away. Eric's schedule has changed. I'll have to be quick, Amanda was saying, her voice hushed. A low murmur answered her, but Eric couldn't distinguish the words. He could guess, though, it was Todd on the other end. His heart pounded. For the first time, he felt a flash of raw anger, a lightning bolt of pure betrayal. He stepped back, not wanting to be caught eavesdropping. He made it to the kitchen, gripping the counter for support. So it was real. Todd and Amanda were secretly meeting, planning. The truth was like a slow poison. He might have confronted her right then, but part of him needed more than overheard snippets. He needed proof that no one could deny something to justify the storm of retribution building in his chest. He called Ivan the next day, a Sunday morning. They rarely spoke on weekends unless there was an emergency, but Eric decided this qualified. Ivan, Eric said calmly, I need you to dig deeper. Any credit card or account usage by Todd or Amanda. Trace it. Let me know about any new anomalies. Ivan paused. All right. You sure you want me to keep quiet about this? It might raise suspicion if I start rummaging around too obviously. Be discreet, Eric said, but do it. And maybe call that private investigator we sometimes use for background checks on new hires. I want him to do some personal surveillance, strictly under the radar. Ivan exhaled. Understood. I've got your back, Eric. He hung up, leaning back in his desk chair. The house was quiet. Amanda had gone out to meet a friend for brunch. She never said which friend, and Eric had decided not to ask. He closed his eyes and thought about how to proceed. If Todd was booking private resort getaways for them, eventually they'd slip up. Maybe the next trip would be the perfect chance for Eric to catch them in the act. He pulled out a notepad and jotted a few bullet points. Check High Point Wilderness Resort investigate booking records. Confirm Todd's presence if he claims a big client. See if that client actually exists. Possible confrontation, gather evidence first. Keep calm. He underlined keep calm twice, because the rage flickering inside him threatened to swallow his usual composure. Eric's father had passed away 8 years ago, leaving partial control of safari replicas to both brothers. Eric was the unstoppable engine that made the business a success. His father had recognized that. But Todd, the older sibling, always felt overshadowed. He'd never said it outright, but the jealousy was there, simmering beneath the surface. Eric suspected Todd was resentful that Eric was the one with a perfect marriage, massive success, respect from employees, and now it seemed Todd was carving out a twisted victory for himself, stealing Amanda right from under Eric's nose. He clenched his fists. The betrayal was not only about the wife he thought loved him, but also about his own blood relative. The combination gnawed at him. Despite the pain, Eric forced a deep breath. Todd and Amanda might see him as an easy mark. Maybe they assumed his polite, disciplined demeanor meant he was blind or weak. Let them think that. It would make his revenge all the sweeter when they realized how wrong they were. By Monday morning, Eric had a plan. He would not confront them verbally. He'd get them in a situation they couldn't escape or explain away. He needed a real smoking gun. He left for work early. Amanda was in the shower. Todd was presumably asleep in his own place. Eric met with Ivan in a small side conference room away from prying ears. Ivan showed him a handful of suspicious charges, particularly one for a 3-night stay at High Point Wilderness Resort, set for next weekend. The reservation listed Todd's name, but the occupant was Mr. and Mrs. Todd Hawkins, presumably to keep Amanda hidden. Eric felt a wave of cold fury. They were even using the Hawkins surname as if they were married. He inhaled slowly, controlling his pulse. "You want me to call the resort?" Ivan asked. "Maybe cancel it or—" "No," Eric interrupted. "Don't cancel anything. Let them go. Let them think they're safe. Meanwhile, I'll arrange something else." Ivan eyed him warily. "Eric, just be careful. I know you can be pretty merciless in business deals, but we're talking about your family." Eric's jaw tightened. "They stopped being my family the second they started this. From now on, they're just obstacles." Ivan swallowed. "All right. I'll keep an eye on the finances. You do whatever you have to do." Eric nodded and walked away, leaving Ivan looking anxious. He had no intention of physically harming Todd or Amanda. He wasn't a killer. But to see them humiliated, to see them stripped of resources or illusions, that was fair game. In fact, it felt necessary, a kind of cosmic justice for what they'd done. Over the next few days, Eric quietly prepared, checking every detail. He confirmed Todd's plan to be at High Point Friday night, presumably with Amanda. She'd told Eric she was going on a tech marketing conference out of town, an obvious lie. Eric made a few calls to some local ex-military contacts he'd used for corporate security. One of them, Sabrina, was especially adept at covert operations and creative illusions. She could stage a scenario that would rattle Todd and Amanda to the core, something involving those wildlife illusions, or maybe something else. He just needed to wait for Friday to roll around, pretend to be none the wiser, then swoop in early to set the trap. By the time Todd and Amanda realized he was there, it would be far too late for them to hide. Eric leaned against his office window, gazing at the city skyline. He could almost sense the tension in his own reflection, a strong man, driven to extremes by betrayal. He whispered to the empty room, "You wanted to cheat? Let's see how far you'll go before the ground collapses beneath your feet." Friday morning came in with a bright sun over the horizon, the kind of day that screamed renewal and promise. For Eric, it felt like stepping onto a battlefield, armed and ready. Amanda left the house at dawn, carrying a rolling suitcase and a laptop bag. She barely looked at him as she said a vague goodbye, citing some urgent conference sessions. He simply offered a nod, feigning mild disinterest. The moment her car disappeared down the driveway, he sprang into action. He had already packed a bag of his own, nothing fancy, just clothes, a small drone camera, and some documents. He also had a secondary phone loaded with special apps for surveillance. He got into his SUV, made a quick call to Sabrina. "Are you in position?" he asked, eyes steady on the road as he pulled out. Sabrina's voice crackled through the line. "Yup, I arrived late last night. The resort staff accepted the story that I'm part of a specialized security outfit, testing some new wilderness safety program. They're not suspicious." "Great. I'll be there in about 2 hours. Let's link up in the lounge, away from prying eyes." Sabrina chuckled. "This is so cloak and dagger. I love it." Eric hung up, pressing the accelerator a bit harder. He wasn't sure whether he felt adrenaline or dread, perhaps both, but he was resolute. He would witness Todd and Amanda in the act, confirm everything beyond doubt, and then deliver the kind of painful comeuppance that liars deserved. High Point Wilderness Resort stood on a sprawling piece of land near a national forest, famous for its luxurious cabins, scenic trails, and breath-stealing views. Guests typically came for hiking, canoeing, or just escaping city noise. Todd and Amanda must have chosen it for the same sense of seclusion, an ideal place to hide from watchful eyes. Eric arrived around midday, checking in under a false name, Andrew Cole. Sabrina had insisted on forging some documents for him, including a membership with a wildlife conservation group. That helped support the cover story. He parked in a remote corner of the lot, noticing Todd's SUV parked in a private spot near cabin 12. No sign of Amanda's car. She might have parked elsewhere, or Todd picked her up on the way. Eric dragged his small suitcase to the main lodge. Inside, a woodsy decor greeted him. Rough-hewn beams overhead, stone fireplace in the lounge, large windows revealing the forest beyond. A few couples lingered by the fireplace, sipping coffee and chatting softly. He spotted Sabrina near a back hallway. She was dressed in casual hiking gear, olive green cargo pants, a black t-shirt, and hiking boots. Her short dark hair was swept under a baseball cap. When she saw Eric, she lifted a brow, giving him a quick once-over to confirm his identity in this disguised scenario. They moved toward the lounge area, seating themselves in a corner with comfy leather chairs. Sabrina handed him a small folder. She began quietly. "So, your brother Todd checked into cabin 12 last night, around 10 p.m. The staff records show one occupant, but I've personally seen 2 sets of footprints leading away from the cabin this morning. A woman's footprints, presumably your wife." Eric nodded, jaw set. "So they're definitely here together. Have you heard or seen them personally?" Sabrina smirked. "Last night I took a short stroll around the perimeter. Let's just say I heard muffled conversation from inside the cabin. Occasionally some laughter. They were enjoying themselves." Eric's heart throbbed with resentment, but he kept his face passive. "Any chance they suspect anything?" "Doubt it," Sabrina said. "They left this morning in Todd's SUV, presumably for a scenic drive. They might be back soon. I installed a small motion-triggered camera near the cabin door, so if we're in range, we'll get an alert on your phone." She pulled a small device from her bag, showing him how to access the feed. Eric took a moment to appreciate her thoroughness. "I also got in touch with a local ex-stuntman," Sabrina continued. "He's on standby with that bear suit we talked about. Just say the word, and we can orchestrate a little wilderness scare." Eric exhaled slowly. "Let's hold off on that for the moment. First, I want to catch them at the resort, maybe record a direct exchange. After that, we'll see how deep I want to go." Sabrina nodded. "Understood. Just remember, everything we do has to be within reason. I'm not about to commit an actual crime." Eric gave her a thin smile. "Don't worry. I'm not planning to physically hurt them. But I do want them to suffer the consequences of their choices. A little fear, humiliation, a sense that they're not in control." They parted ways, agreeing to meet again after dinner. Eric made his way to cabin 5, assigned to Andrew Cole, which was nestled among pine trees. After unlocking the door, he carried in his suitcase and quickly set up his personal drone. It was small enough to be disguised as a hobby device. He needed to confirm whether Todd and Amanda truly believed they were alone, maybe catch them in a moment of irrefutable intimacy. But first, he rechecked the motion camera feed from Sabrina's device. The cabin door for Todd's place was still shut. No sign they'd returned from their outing. Good he had time. He moved into the cabin's back porch, carefully guiding his drone into the air. The clearing behind cabin 5 was perfect for a stealth launch. He directed the drone through a narrow flight path in the trees, heading toward cabin 12. The distance was short, maybe 300 yards. The feed on his phone displayed the drone's camera view in real time. He soared above the treetops, then dipped lower to hover near the side window of cabin 12. The curtains were partially drawn, so he couldn't see much. Eric hissed quietly. He'd have to wait or find a better angle. On a whim, he guided the drone around the back, near a side window. The glass there was uncovered. Inside, he glimpsed the living area, small and cozy, empty. He retreated the drone to a safe vantage above the roofline, turning off the camera for now to conserve battery. If Todd and Amanda returned, maybe Eric could capture them stepping inside, arms around each other. Hours passed. Hours. The resort served a lovely dinner in the main lodge, so Eric took a corner table, feigning interest in his phone while scanning the crowd. Around 7 p.m., he saw them. Todd and Amanda strolled in, arm in arm, all smiles. They scanned the room, but presumably they didn't recognize Eric with his baseball cap, partially hidden face, and different posture. He kept his head low as they passed to get a table near the windows. The raw ache in his chest threatened to flare. Seeing Amanda lean into Todd's shoulder, whispering something that made him grin, felt like a knife. But Eric swallowed his anger, forcing himself to watch calmly. He overheard bits of their conversation. Amanda: "So crazy that we can finally do this without worrying he'll show up unannounced." Todd: "Trust me, if Eric knew, he'd have done something by now." Eric's fists clenched under the table, so they truly believed he was clueless. They ordered a fancy bottle of wine, toasted each other. Todd fed Amanda a bite of dessert with a smirk. She giggled. The image was almost cinematic, a pair of lovers enjoying a romantic getaway. By the time they left the dining room, Eric felt drained from holding his composure. He texted Sabrina: "They're heading back to cabin 12. Let's see if we can get footage soon." Sabrina responded promptly: "On it. Let me reposition the motion camera." Eric paid his tab, left a decent tip, and followed them at a safe distance. The night air was crisp, the sky glowing with stars. The path to the cabins was lined with dim lanterns. Todd and Amanda meandered, arms around each other's waists, occasionally sharing a quiet laugh. Finally, they disappeared into cabin 12. Eric, staying well back, swiftly moved to a vantage point behind a cluster of shrubs. Sabrina, from the other side, signaled a thumbs up in the darkness. She was already capturing video from another angle. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Through a narrow gap in the curtains, Eric saw them set their wine glasses on a small table. Then Todd reached for Amanda, pulling her into a tight embrace. The drone feed from Eric's phone showed them kissing. Amanda's hand slid around Todd's waist as he pulled her closer. They parted for a moment, talking, but the audio was muffled. Eric only caught fragments. Todd: "Soon we'll figure out a permanent arrangement." Amanda: "I just hate the sneaking, but I love this." She kissed him again. The camera angle turned sharper, revealing them locked in a passionate moment. Eric's gut burned with a mixture of fury and sorrow. At last, there it was, the final blow to any illusions he might have harbored. He forced himself to keep recording. This was the evidence. There could be no disclaimers of innocence now. Eric's heart pounded, his breath tight. He expected he might storm in, scream at them, but a calm steel overcame him instead. He recalled a lesson he'd learned in business. Never strike in anger when you can destroy with strategy. He ended the drone feed, the footage stored on his phone. He texted Sabrina again. "I have what I need. Time for a new angle. I want them to think they're safe tonight, but we'll orchestrate a little scenario tomorrow." Sabrina wrote back promptly. "Understood. We can set up road sabotage or a forest scare. Let me know." Eric typed a single word: "Yes," because tomorrow Todd and Amanda planned a scenic drive around the forest roads. Todd had told Amanda he wanted to show her some secret lookout he'd discovered on a previous trip. Perfect. Eric would be ready. He couldn't quite articulate the swirl of feelings inside him. The heartbreak felt overshadowed by a sense of grim satisfaction. For once, he held the upper hand. He pocketed his phone and slipped back toward his own cabin, ignoring the sting behind his eyes. He'd always prided himself on emotional control. If he let heartbreak get the better of him now, he might lose focus. So he clung to that focus like a lifeline. He whispered to himself, "You two have no idea what's coming." In cabin 5, Eric sat at the desk, reviewing the footage he'd captured. There it was, in high definition, the betrayal spelled out in real time. The kisses, the tender words, the undeniable comfort they shared with each other. He set the phone aside, feeling ill. His thoughts drifted to random memories with Amanda, their wedding day, the honeymoon in Hawaii, the numerous times she'd told him she was proud of him for building safari replicas from scratch. Now those memories felt like they belonged to a stranger, or perhaps they had always been illusions. Todd, for his part, was the big brother who used to roughhouse with Eric in the backyard, who taught him how to catch a baseball, who gave him advice on girls back in high school. And now that same brother had stolen his wife, become her lover right under Eric's nose. He closed his eyes. If not for the fact that Todd was still a business partner, maybe Eric would have just filed for divorce quietly and walked away. But Todd's involvement in safari replicas complicated matters. The betrayal had tendrils in Eric's personal life and his professional empire. Hence the plan: sabotage Todd's illusions of power, ruin his credibility, break his hold on the company. Then, turn the tables on Amanda. She wanted to enjoy Todd's lavish spending and Eric's indirect funds? Fine. She'd find out how quickly Eric could cut her off. He barely slept that night, pacing the small living room, mind racing with how exactly to orchestrate the final blow. Sometime after 3 a.m., he dozed off in the armchair. Dreams came in harsh fragments, images of Amanda laughing in Todd's arms, swirling with the memory of his father's funeral. When morning sunlight crept through the curtains, Eric woke with a stiff neck and a pounding headache. But none of that mattered. Today was the day he'd begin punishing them both. Eric splashed cold water on his face, shaking off the remnants of restless sleep. He checked his phone. Sabrina had already texted him a game plan. They'll likely leave for the scenic road by 9:30 a.m. We can intercept them at the gravel turnoff. My team is in position. He typed back, perfect. He left cabin 5 and ventured toward the main lodge for a quick breakfast. The resort guests were milling about in hiking clothes, some picking up coffee and pastries. Eric scanned the crowd but saw no sign of Todd or Amanda. Good, they must still be in their cabin. He sipped his black coffee in silence, mentally reviewing the details. Sabrina's contact, an ex-sniper, would hide in the trees near the gravel road. The moment Todd's SUV drove by, he'd pop the tires with suppressed shots, giving the impression of a blowout. Meanwhile, Sabrina's stunt friend was ready with the realistic bear suit deeper in the forest, set to spook Todd and Amanda if they tried walking back. The end result: a forced trek through the woods, fear, disorientation, enough to rattle them thoroughly. Eric recognized the plan was extreme, but so was the betrayal. He wanted them to experience dread, helplessness, to realize that maybe the world wasn't under their control. He finished his coffee and stepped out onto the lodge's front steps. The morning sunlight glimmered on dew-soaked grass. A crisp breeze whispered through the pines. In another life, he might have found this setting tranquil. Now it was just the stage for revenge. Shortly after 9 a.m., Eric discreetly made his way toward a vantage point near cabin 12. He didn't want to be too obvious, so he found a path behind some dense shrubbery that allowed partial visibility of their parking spot. At 9:25, the cabin door opened. Todd emerged first, wearing a light jacket and cargo pants. Amanda followed, sporting an athletic outfit. She looked energized, almost glowing with happiness. The sight made Eric's stomach twist. Todd loaded a small cooler and a backpack into the trunk, while Amanda checked her phone. Then they both hopped into Todd's black SUV. The engine roared to life and they backed out, heading down the resort's private road. Eric ducked down, waiting until they were gone. Then he exhaled, heart hammering. Showtime. He texted Sabrina a single word. Now? She replied instantly, "Got it, we're ready." Eric watched the SUV from a distance using binoculars. The road was narrow, winding through tall conifers. He saw them slow down at the intersection. Presumably Todd was checking directions. Then the car turned onto the gravel route that led deeper into the forest, an area known for scenic overlooks. Perfect. No random traffic there. Seconds later, Eric heard 2 muffled pops. Pfft, pfft. At that distance, no one else would notice. Sure enough, Todd's SUV jolted awkwardly, then shuddered to a halt. Eric smirked, adrenaline surging. The plan was working. He hopped into his own vehicle, a short distance away, and started following at a slow pace. He wanted to remain out of sight, so he waited behind a cluster of trees, letting them move ahead on foot if they tried to walk. About 10 minutes later, Eric parked and carefully moved through the woods on foot. He soon spotted Todd's SUV leaning precariously on 2 flat front tires. Todd was standing outside, phone pressed to his ear. Amanda hovered near him, arms folded, looking anxious. Eric hid behind a thick trunk, close enough to catch bits of their conversation. Amanda: "Is there any signal?" Todd: "Barely. It keeps dropping. Damn it, it's so weird these tires went out like that. Could be sharp rocks, but I can't find any." Amanda kicked at the gravel. "I hate this place. Let's just head back on foot if we can't get a tow." Todd sighed, phone still in the air. "Service is too spotty. All right, we'll walk back. Should be what, 2, 3 miles? Amanda made a face. Ugh, that's at least an hour. I'm not dressed for a long hike. Todd popped the trunk, rummaging for anything helpful, but apparently found nothing. He slammed it shut, cursing under his breath. Then they started walking. As the couple trudged along, Eric shadowed them at a safe distance. The forest was alive with birdsong and rustling branches. Now and then, Todd and Amanda argued about whose fault it was that the tires blew.
"You insisted we take this route," Amanda hissed. "It's supposed to be a scenic drive, not a tire graveyard," Todd retorted.
Eric almost laughed at how quickly their romantic getaway turned into a fiasco. He was about to text Sabrina for the next phase, but then he heard a piercing shriek from Amanda up ahead. She'd spotted something huge and furry moving among the trees, a bear, courtesy of Sabrina's stunt friend. The figure rose on its hind legs, letting out a fierce roar. Todd yelled, "Get behind me!" He grabbed a stick from the ground, brandishing it uselessly. The bear roared again, swaying, then dropped to all fours as if preparing to charge. Amanda screamed, dropping her small purse. Todd paled. They both spun around and ran back in the opposite direction, deeper into the forest, ironically away from the main road. Eric carefully circled around, making sure not to be seen. He glimpsed the bear loping away to avoid any real confrontation. Todd and Amanda, utterly spooked, were now losing their bearings. They were heading into a section of the forest where the trails were faint, and thick undergrowth would slow them drastically. Over the next hour, Eric kept a respectful distance, watching Todd and Amanda bicker as they stumbled through thickets. Amanda's ankles got scratched by brambles. Todd twisted his foot on a rock, cursing with every step. They tried to call for help, but the phone signal was non-existent that deep in the woods. Their clothes got sweaty and torn. The romantic glow they had at breakfast was gone, replaced by raw fear and frustration. At one point, Amanda sobbed, "Oh God, if we don't get out of here soon, Eric will wonder where I am." Todd gave a bitter laugh. "He's probably home, clueless as usual. We just have to get to a road and call a tow truck." Eric felt a spark of satisfaction. Let them cling to that false sense of superiority. Meanwhile, he had eyes on them, orchestrating every step of their misery. By midday, Todd and Amanda were exhausted. They found a small clearing near a trickling stream, collapsing onto the grass. Todd examined his ankle, which had started swelling. Amanda tried to remain calm, but couldn't stop her tears from spilling over. "I can't believe this is happening," she wailed. "Maybe we should have stayed with the SUV. At least we could have flagged down another car eventually." Todd grimaced, wiping sweat from his brow. "We'll figure this out. Let's just rest. Then we'll see if we can circle back to the main road or find a ranger station." Their conversation slowed to occasional murmurs, overshadowed by their obvious exhaustion. Eric watched from behind a thick juniper bush, ensuring he remained unseen. He could let them stew a bit longer. Sabrina texted him an update. "I can have a ranger show up soon, direct them to a longer trail, or offer partial assistance. Up to you." Eric typed back, "Let's wait an hour. They need to be more desperate. Then have the ranger appear, offer minimal help, just enough to keep them wandering." Sabrina responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Eric sat on a fallen log, pulling out a bottle of water. A wave of guilt brushed him, but he pushed it aside. They chose this path. They deceived him repeatedly. Let them pay the price. In that quiet hour, as Todd and Amanda lay panting in the clearing, Eric's mind drifted to why Amanda would do this. Was there a piece of him that had ignored her emotional needs? Had Todd manipulated her by feeding her illusions of excitement or a more carefree life? He rubbed his temples, telling himself it didn't matter. Even if he had some share of blame, it never justified sleeping with his brother. There were lines you just don't cross. He recalled the final vow in his wedding ceremony, forsaking all others. The words felt hollow now. Amanda had trashed that vow. So had Todd, in a sense, trashing brotherly loyalty. Another text from Sabrina. "They look at their wits' end. Ready for me to send in the ranger?" Eric exhaled. "Do it. Make sure they have to keep walking." This next step would push Todd and Amanda to truly feel helpless, forced to rely on strangers who'd guide them in circles. Meanwhile, Eric could watch from the shadows, filming if needed. Then, tonight, they would eventually limp back to the resort in tatters where Eric would be waiting with the final blow. An hour later, Todd and Amanda were startled by the approach of a uniformed figure, a park ranger, wearing a wide-brimmed hat with a backpack and official-looking patches. This was actually Sabrina's friend, Caleb, skilled at playing roles convincingly. He raised a hand in greeting. "Howdy, folks. You two lost?" Todd practically jumped to his feet, wincing as he put weight on his injured ankle. "Man, are we glad to see you. Our car had some blowouts. Then we ran into a bear." Amanda's voice trembled. "Please, we just need to get back. Do you have a radio or something to call for help?" Caleb nodded thoughtfully. "Signal out here's real spotty, but I know a ranger station about 3 miles that way." He pointed deeper into the forest, carefully chosen to lead them further away. Todd looked horrified. "That far? My ankle's messed up. Is there a shorter route?" Caleb scratched his chin. "Shorter route is along the ridge trail. Not sure you want that steep drop-offs, loose rocks?" Amanda bit her lip, tears in her eyes. "We'll do whatever it takes. We can't stay out here." Caleb shrugged. "All right, follow me. Stick close. Watch your step." Eric, hidden behind a tree about 50 yards away, stifled a grin. Everything was going to plan. Todd and Amanda would be forced to traverse a grueling path, believing a ranger was guiding them. Caleb would occasionally pretend to check a handheld radio that never actually transmitted anything. Once again, Eric texted Sabrina, "They're moving west. Let's see if you can orchestrate the next surprise." She replied, "Copy that. Bear friend is repositioning." Caleb led Todd and Amanda through thick underbrush. Thorny vines tore at Amanda's leggings. Todd limped, cursing every few steps. The bear once again roared in the distance, making them jump in terror. Caleb put on a show of comforting them. "It's probably a juvenile black bear, more scared of you than you are of it. Just stay quiet." Amanda clung to Todd's arm. "This is a nightmare." Todd tried to reassure her with forced confidence. "We'll be okay once we reach that station." Eric followed at a distance, ensuring they didn't catch sight of him. The raw satisfaction inside him grew. He was grateful no real harm had come to them, just fear, exhaustion, and misery. Perhaps it would teach them something about the consequences of betrayal. Around midday, Eric's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Elaine, Ivan's wife. He ducked behind a boulder to answer in a hushed voice. "Elaine," he greeted softly. "Is everything all right?" She sounded worried. "Eric, I know you told Ivan not to share too many details, but I have this bad feeling something major is happening. Did you do something with Amanda and Todd? Ivan said you're out of town." Eric hesitated, glancing up to confirm Todd and Amanda were still with Caleb. They were about 50 yards away, forging through brush. "Elaine, I appreciate your concern. Let's just say I discovered exactly what I suspected, and I'm dealing with it." A shaky breath from Elaine. "Look, I'm not defending Amanda or Todd, but this whatever you're doing, is it safe?" He grimaced. "They're physically safe. I wouldn't risk truly harming them, but I want them to feel what it's like to be vulnerable, to lose control, so they can't just keep lying and pretending everything's fine." Elaine's voice trembled. I understand, I guess. Just be careful, Eric. Sometimes revenge can break you as well as them." He softened a fraction. "I know. But trust me, I need this. If you see Amanda, do me a favor, keep your distance. Don't get roped into her games." Elaine exhaled. "All right, I'll let you go. Please be safe." He ended the call, slipping the phone back into his pocket. For a fleeting moment, Elaine's concern tugged at his conscience, but he hardened his resolve. Todd and Amanda had broken a sacred trust. If he went soft now, they'd just continue with their illusions. By mid-afternoon, the group reached a small, rustic cabin Sabrina's team had discovered. In reality, it was a seldom-used forest outpost that Sabrina had temporarily stocked with minimal supplies. The door was unlocked. Caleb feigned relief. "All right, we can rest here. Let me see if the radio inside works better." Todd hobbled into the cabin, dropping onto an old wooden chair. Amanda sank onto a cot, face streaked with sweat and dirt. "I can't believe we're so far from the resort," she muttered. "We should have just stayed put for roadside assistance." Todd glared. "You think I wanted to wander all day?" Caleb rummaged through a dusty cabinet, producing a weathered radio. He fiddled with it, giving a convincing performance of static hisses and broken transmissions. Not getting a strong signal. Storm might be messing with the tower. Amanda rolled her eyes. Perfect. Todd tried standing again, but winced, sitting back down. My ankle might be sprained. Is there a first aid kit? Caleb nodded, pulling out a battered metal box from another shelf. Wrap it tight. We can try to walk to the main ranger station first thing in the morning. Amanda's voice raised in alarm. Morning? Are we spending the night here? Caleb gave an apologetic shrug. It's already late. You won't make it before dark sets in. Forest paths can be deadly in low light. I suggest you hunker down here. Todd and Amanda exchanged looks of dread. But we're supposed to check out of the resort tomorrow, Todd complained. Caleb feigned sympathy. Look, it's your call. If you want to risk night hiking, be my guest. But that bear's out there, and mountain lions sometimes roam at dusk. Amanda shuddered. No, we'll stay. Eric, watching from outside, felt a surge of triumph. Todd and Amanda were effectively stuck. He texted Sabrina. They'll be in that cabin overnight. This is better than I expected. Let's keep an eye on them, make sure they don't do anything drastic. Sabrina replied, Understood. They're safe but miserable. Perfect. Eric found a discreet spot to set up camp behind thick brush, ensuring he had a vantage on the cabin's entrance. He'd remain there through the night if necessary, making sure no real danger befell them. The last thing he wanted was a legitimate tragedy. This was punishment, not violence. As dusk settled, the forest's sounds changed from chirping birds to rustling leaves and distant hoots of owls. The cabin's single window glowed faintly with lantern light. Eric imagined Todd and Amanda trying to get comfortable on rickety bunks, hungry and frustrated. He, on the other hand, quietly opened a protein bar from his pocket and sipped water. Every so often, he thought about simply stepping forward and confronting them. But that direct approach might lead to frantic denial or, worst, a physical altercation with Todd. Eric wanted a more controlled environment for the final confrontation like the resort lobby, with people around who could witness their shame. So he waited, letting them stew in darkness, trusting Sabrina's team to keep any real wildlife at bay. He checked his phone. No bars. That was fine, no pressing business, as he'd left the CFO Ivan in charge for a couple of days. The night felt long, his mind drifting over the next steps. Once Todd and Amanda finally returned, Eric would have ample proof of their affair. He'd present it calmly but decisively strip Todd of his position at Safari Replicas, freeze Amanda's access to the joint bank accounts. He'd already arranged with his lawyer to file for divorce the moment he gave the word. Yes, tomorrow or the day after, he'd see them limp back to the resort like battered refugees. Then he'd strike. In the deep hush of the forest, Eric's thoughts wandered back to how he'd met Amanda. They were introduced by mutual friends at a corporate function. She'd been charming, full of ideas and laughter. She claimed to admire his ambition, said she found his discipline magnetic. For a while, it felt like they had an ironclad partnership, him forging a business empire, her championing him from the sidelines. Where did it all shift? Did she grow bored with his steady reliability? Did Todd present some excitement or rebellious streak she craved? I never thought a rebellious streak meant jumping into bed with my own brother. The mental image stung. He blinked away the memory, forcing his breathing to remain steady. Tomorrow, he'd begin severing all ties with that old life. This was a new Eric Hawkins, one who refused to be deceived or taken advantage of. At around midnight, Eric heard Amanda crying inside the cabin, her voice traveling through the still air. She was speaking softly to Todd. Amanda, muffled sobbing. What if Eric finds out? What if he's suspicious already? Todd, exasperated whisper. He's too busy. He's not the type to do anything extreme even if he suspected. Stop worrying. Her cries softened. Todd murmured soothing words, apparently trying to comfort her. Eric sat on the cold ground outside, arms wrapped around his knees. A faint pang of sympathy tugged at him. She sounded genuinely scared. He reminded himself that her fear was a product of her choices. She'd done this, brought it on herself. If she was terrified of him now, it was only because she knew how deeply she'd wounded him. He closed his eyes, letting the moment pass. Compassion was a dangerous thread. If he indulged it, he might unravel the entire plan. They need to face consequences. He repeated that mantra in his head like a prayer, until the pang of sympathy faded. When morning light broke, the cabin door opened. Eric roused himself from a half-sleep. Todd emerged limping, with Amanda behind him looking disheveled. Caleb was nowhere to be seen. He must have pretended to go check on something at daybreak, leaving them to fend for themselves. They began a slow trek along the path that presumably led back toward the main ranger station. They looked exhausted, clothes streaked with dirt, hair messy. Todd's expression wavered between frustration and relief at seeing daylight. Amanda stared at the ground as she walked. Eric let them get a decent head start, then followed from a distance. The bear wouldn't appear this time, so they'd have a clear path to the actual forest road, eventually hitch a ride or find a location with cell reception. He texted Sabrina. "Let's let them return on their own. I'll meet them at the resort." Sabrina answered, "Understood. We'll pack up." Eric realized this might be the last chance for Todd and Amanda to cling to illusions. By the time they stumbled back to the resort, possibly late morning or midday, he'd be ready with the final confrontation. A quiet voice in his mind whispered, "Are you truly ready for that conversation?" He inhaled, ignoring the voice. They'd humiliated him. Now it was their turn to be humiliated. The morning sun beat down heavily on the resort's main path as Eric Hawkins watched from a discreet perch near the lobby entrance. He nursed a dull ache in his lower back, a souvenir from spending most of the previous night crouched in the woods. A faint breeze teased the edges of his jacket, but it offered little relief from the tension swirling inside him. It was close to midday when he saw Todd and Amanda stagger onto the manicured lawn that stretched from the tree line to the resort buildings. They looked utterly drained mud on their clothes, scratches on their arms, Todd's limp more pronounced than ever. Their expressions carried the kind of raw exhaustion that comes from hours spent lost in unfamiliar terrain. Eric's heart pounded with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 accomplished. The night in that makeshift cabin had clearly taken its toll. He wanted to see the moment Todd realized that the real threat was not the forest, but Eric himself. He pulled out his phone, texted Sabrina. "They've arrived. Stay nearby, but let me handle the confrontation alone." Sabrina replied, "Copy. Call if you need me." Eric slipped around the side of the lobby, positioning himself near a row of potted ferns. He watched as Todd and Amanda limped up the steps into the airy foyer. The resort's front desk clerk stared in surprise, and a few curious guests paused mid-conversation, taking in the sight of these two battered individuals. Amanda leaned heavily on Todd's arm. "God, I just want a hot shower," she whispered, her voice trembling with fatigue. Todd dragged them both to the check-in counter, summoning a tight-lipped smile for the clerk. "We, had an accident on the forest road. Couldn't get help until now. We need to see if we can extend our stay for another night, or at least get access to our cabin for a shower." The clerk blinked. "Your cabin was scheduled to end today, correct?" Todd swallowed. "Yes, but we might have to stay a bit longer. The SUV's still out there with 2 flat tires. We're not going anywhere until that's fixed." Behind the potted fern, Eric considered stepping forward right then and there, unmask himself with a dramatic flourish. But no. He wanted them to have a fleeting sense of false relief. Let them imagine they could regroup, shower, maybe down a stiff drink, and then bam, he'd strike with cold finality. Let them catch a whiff of comfort before the slaughter. He carefully circled around to the side corridor, near the elevator bank. He saw the clerk type on her computer. "It looks like cabin 12 is still available for one more night, sir. We'll just add it to your credit card on file." Amanda nodded, biting her lip. "Thank you so much. We appreciate it." Todd exhaled heavily, swiping the key card once more. He tossed a glance at Amanda, murmuring, "Let's go get cleaned up." She nodded, and they shuffled toward the elevator. Eric waited until the doors slid closed behind them. Perfect. They'd soon discover that their credit card on file might fail at any moment. Ivan, his CFO, had arranged a partial freeze on Todd's personal accounts, plus the joint corporate card. That was phase 2. Let Todd and Amanda walk into the jaws of a financial meltdown, the same way they'd strolled into the forest trap. He quietly crossed the lobby, ignoring the suspicious stares of a couple guests. He had a sense that soon, everyone in the resort would know something scandalous was happening. Before he confronted them face to face, Eric needed to confirm a few legal details. He retreated to a small reading nook off the main lounge, a place lined with bookshelves and plush chairs. There, he dialed Melinda Garcia, his attorney. Melinda answered on the second ring, her tone brisk but polite. "Eric, good morning. I was just about to reach out. We've progressed on the dissolution documents you requested." "Fantastic," Eric said softly, glancing around to ensure privacy. "So, as soon as I give the word, we can file for divorce on grounds of adultery and misappropriation, yes?" "Yes. I do need to confirm we have solid evidence of the infidelity. You mentioned photographs or video?" He nodded, though she couldn't see him. "I do. I also have witness statements if needed, but I doubt it'll get that far. They can't deny it if confronted with the footage." Melinda paused. "Understood. Just be aware that in some states, proof of adultery may or may not expedite the process, but it definitely influences any spousal support claims. If Amanda tries for alimony, we can argue blatant misconduct on her part. Plus, we have her questionable use of your personal funds. That alone might be enough to limit any financial settlement." "That's precisely what I want," Eric said. "I'd like to leave her with nothing, or as close to nothing as the law allows." A beat of silence. "I see. Well, the documents can be filed electronically as soon as you give the final go-ahead. Keep me informed." He ended the call. The reality of it struck him. He was about to blow up his marriage completely. No turning back. A small part of him still felt a pang at the notion he'd once loved Amanda deeply. But any illusions of love had perished the moment he saw her with Todd in that cabin. This was war, and in war, one must not hesitate. Up on the second floor of cabin 12, the shower hissed as warm water cascaded over Amanda's aching shoulders. She closed her eyes, letting the steam envelop her. Her mind whirred with conflicting emotions. Relief to be out of the forest, fear of what Eric might suspect or do, guilt for letting Todd lead her into this fiasco. She rinsed mud from her hair, wincing as she touched a scratch on her forearm. In the bedroom, Todd sat on the edge of the bed, foot propped on a pillow. He muttered curses every time he moved his swollen ankle. He'd pulled off his dirt-streaked clothes, but hadn't yet mustered the energy to shower. Amanda's voice carried from the bathroom, shaky and tired. "Todd? Can you check your phone again? Maybe we can arrange for a tow truck now that we have Wi-Fi." Todd grabbed his phone, tried to open a browser. No dice. The screen froze, then demanded a password for his mobile banking app, which apparently wasn't working. "This damn thing," he growled, slamming it on the nightstand. Amanda finished washing up, wrapped herself in a resort bathrobe, and stepped out into the bedroom, hair damp around her shoulders. The circles under her eyes betrayed her near breakdown from the prior night's ordeal. She perched next to Todd. "What's the plan? We can't keep lying to Eric indefinitely. Sooner or later, he'll notice I'm not actually at a conference." Todd shot her a grim look. "I told you, Eric's too caught up in his corporate expansions. He won't do anything rash. We'll just say your conference got extended or you had an unexpected flight delay if we absolutely need to." Amanda twisted a strand of wet hair around her finger. "I hate this. We're living on borrowed time, Todd. I never wanted it to become this complicated." He rubbed his temples. "We'll figure it out. Once we secure that big investor I talked about, we can set up a separate venture and walk away from Safari replicas. Then you can leave Eric for real. We'll have our own money, our own—" She inhaled sharply. "That's a pipe dream. Everything you've tried so far hasn't worked out. And after last night, Todd, we could have died out there. What if that bear had attacked?" He stiffened, hearing the fear in her voice. He didn't respond for a moment. Finally, he managed. "We're safe now. Let's just gather ourselves. I'll call a mechanic. We'll get out of here tomorrow and figure out our next steps." Amanda nodded, but a flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. She leaned her head on Todd's shoulder as though seeking some solace. In truth, she felt no real comfort. The specter of Eric's reaction loomed in her mind. Meanwhile, in the city, Ivan Carter was about to step into an unscheduled board meeting with two of Safari Replicas' senior advisors. Eric had told him not to mention the personal scandal just yet, but he had plenty of corporate business to handle, especially the freeze on Todd's shares. He tapped a folder on the conference table. The board members, Marjorie Lynn and Gerald Price, looked curious. Marjorie cleared her throat. "Ivan, you requested this meeting pretty urgently. Something about questionable expenses under Todd's department?" Ivan nodded. "Yes, I have reason to believe Todd's been funneling company funds into non-approved uses. Could be personal travel, possibly even larger-scale embezzlement. I'm still investigating, but we need a contingency plan if Eric decides to remove Todd from the partnership." Gerald arched an eyebrow. "Remove? That's a big step. Todd's Eric's brother. Are you sure Eric would want that?" Ivan spread his hands. "Let's just say Eric's discovered major misconduct. We'll have official documentation soon. In the meantime, I'm recommending we freeze Todd's corporate spending and block his access to sensitive accounts. I've already started the process with the bank." Marjorie frowned. "If Todd fights back, this could spark a public fiasco. Do we have enough leverage to handle the fallout?" Ivan offered a thin smile. "Eric has evidence that would sink Todd in any legal battle. I'm certain. Our best move is to stand behind Eric, enforce the corporate bylaws, and ensure the company's stability." Gerald and Marjorie exchanged a glance. Then Gerald sighed. "All right, we trust Eric's judgment. We'll support the freeze. Let's keep this quiet until the official announcement." Ivan nodded, relief flooding him. "Thank you. I'll proceed carefully." As Ivan left the boardroom, he felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. He'd always liked Todd in a casual sense. Todd was sociable, the older brother figure with a big grin. But after what Ivan had uncovered, it was clear Todd had gone beyond petty misconduct. He'd used company resources to wine and dine Eric's wife. That's a new level of low. Ivan had no sympathy left. He stepped into his office, locking the door behind him. Over his lunch break, he would finalize the last bits of evidence. Eric was counting on him. At least Eric will have a strong corporate standing after all this. That small silver lining might ease the pain of personal betrayal Eric must be enduring. Back at the resort, Eric bided his time. He expected Todd and Amanda to eventually limp down to handle logistics, contacting a tow truck, paying for their extended stay, maybe even grabbing lunch at the lounge. When they emerged around 1 p.m. showered but still haggard, Eric was ready. They stepped into the lobby once more, Todd leaning on a cheap cane the staff had kindly lent him. Amanda hovered at his side, trying not to draw attention. A different clerk was at the desk now, a middle-aged man with a polite but guarded demeanor. Eric calmly approached from behind, making no effort to hide his face. He stood just a few feet away as Todd asked about local mechanics. Amanda rummaged for a credit card in her purse. The clerk typed a few notes. "Yes, we have a recommended service that can come tow your vehicle. The cost is—" He paused, glancing at Amanda's extended card. "Ma'am, this is being declined." Amanda blinked. "Declined? That's impossible." She tried another card. Same result. Her cheeks flushed. "Could you try again?" The clerk attempted it, then shrugged apologetically. "No luck." Todd swore under his breath. "Use the corporate card," he told Amanda. She hesitated, then produced a black credit card with the Safari replica's insignia. The clerk ran it, frowned, then said, "I'm sorry, sir, but it's also coming back as restricted. Says you need to contact the account holder." Before Todd could respond, Eric stepped forward, letting his presence loom over them. "That won't help," he said quietly. "Not anymore." Todd whirled at the sound of Eric's voice, color draining from his face. Amanda gasped, nearly dropping the wallet. A hush fell in the lobby area as a few onlookers recognized a confrontation brewing. Eric offered them a cold smile, an expression devoid of warmth. "Todd, Amanda, you both look like you've had a rough couple of days." Amanda's eyes darted from Eric to Todd, pure panic flickering. Todd tried to straighten, but his injured ankle buckled. "Eric, what are you doing here?" He allowed a chuckle, low and menacing. "I might ask you the same question. Last I heard, Amanda was off at some conference, and Todd, you were chasing a big investor. How's that going?" No one spoke. The clerk awkwardly stepped back from the desk, giving them space. Amanda opened her mouth, but no words came out. Todd's face twisted with desperation. Eric, let me explain. Don't bother, Eric cut in, lifting a hand. I already know. The hidden receipts, the midnight calls, the cabin I found you in. I've got footage. So let's skip the lies. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. She tried to reach for Eric's arm, but he stepped away. Eric, please, you have to listen. He glared at her. I've listened enough. I've seen enough. Do you realize how disgusting it was watching you and my own brother carry on? His voice shook with controlled fury. But don't worry. I'm not here for a fistfight or a shouting match. I'm just letting you know the credit cards, the bank accounts, the business partnerships, all of it is being shut off to you. You're done, both of you. Todd's mouth opened fish-like, as though searching for a retort. A few stunned guests watched, riveted. Amanda's tears began to flow. She stammered, Eric, I'm sorry, I never meant we didn't. You did, Eric snarled. Now face the consequences. Todd, your shares in Safari replicas are frozen pending an investigation. Amanda, I'm filing for divorce. Consider yourself cut off from my finances, effective immediately. Her sob broke through. You can't do that, I have no place to go. My job. He ignored her pleas. Find your own solutions, or rely on Todd's brand new secret investor. Todd's expression was pure fear. The final blow landed with savage force. Eric, you can't just we'll talk to the board. Eric let out a mirthless laugh. You think the board wants a partner who embezzled funds for personal pleasures, including hooking up with my wife? Good luck. He leaned in, voice dropping. Enjoy the rest of your stay, if you can afford it. He turned on his heel and walked away, leaving them standing in mortified silence at the check-in desk, the entire resort lobby swirling with whispered gossip. Eric strode outside into the bright daylight, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He breathed heavily, realizing how close he'd come to losing his composure. But he'd done it. Publicly confronted them, cut them down, left them reeling. He could practically feel the sweet tang of vengeance. His phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina. Saw that from a distance. Nicely done. They looked shattered. He typed back, meet me by the outdoor cafe in 5 minutes. Now came the next steps, coordinating with the lawyers, ensuring Todd was locked out of corporate accounts, confirming Amanda's eviction from their joint property. He felt numb, yet oddly clear-headed. This needed to happen. He walked toward the cafe seating area, heart hammering. The day's not over yet, he told himself. They might still try to beg or manipulate. Let them. He was beyond pity now. An hour later, Eric sat at a small table on the cafe's terrace, stirring a cup of coffee that had long since cooled. Opposite him, Sabrina maintained her casual posture, wearing aviator sunglasses and leaning back in her chair like a relaxed tourist. Yet beneath that composed exterior, Eric could sense she was fully alert. Well, Sabrina said quietly, they're cornered. Todd tried calling the bank, no dice. Amanda apparently tried reaching out to a friend, didn't get an answer. Eric nodded, glancing at the resort's main building. He couldn't see Todd or Amanda from here, but he imagined them somewhere inside, frantically searching for a financial lifeline. Good. Let them see how quickly the world collapses when I pull the rug out. Sabrina slid a phone across the table. A paused video was on the screen footage of Todd's meltdown at the check-in counter, captured from a distance. I recorded a bit in case you want a personal keepsake. He stared at the freeze frame of Todd's anguished face. Oddly, Eric felt no surge of triumph now. He'd gotten everything he wanted: public humiliation, the corporate hammer about to fall on Todd, divorce papers ready for Amanda. Yet a strange emptiness tugged at him. Is this what revenge feels like? He forced the doubt aside. Thanks. I'll hold on to it, in case I need more evidence to discredit them if they spin a sob story. Sabrina's gaze lingered on him. I know we never discussed this personal dimension in detail, but how are you holding up, Eric? Mentally, I mean. He stifled a hollow laugh. I'm fine. This is what has to be done. The dryness in his tone revealed he was anything but fine. But if she can see my conflict, I need to bury it deeper. All right, Sabrina said gently. Just remember, once you cross certain lines, it can be hard to come back. He exhaled, forcing a polite nod. I appreciate your concern. Let's finalize the next steps. They might try to slip out tonight or rally some help. I want them stranded, forced to confront reality. Sabrina tapped a small notepad in front of her. We've got eyes on the parking area. Todd's SUV has 2 flat tires still out on that forest road, legitimately no progress there. A local mechanic offered a tow, but Todd apparently discovered the cost is insane without a working credit card. Eric smirked. He can't even access the corporate rescue vehicle. Good. He paused. What about the possibility of Todd contacting bigger fish like, say, some shady loan or an old friend with money? Sabrina shrugged. He'd have to do that by phone or internet. As of now, we have no sign he's reached any real outside help. We could keep monitoring if you want. Yes, keep watch. I want them pinned down for at least another day. Tomorrow I'll wrap up everything with my lawyer. Then I'll let them scurry off however they can. Sabrina nodded. She closed her notepad, finishing her iced tea in a long sip. One more thing. Amanda might attempt an emotional appeal. She's your wife, after all. Are you prepared for that? His jaw tightened. I'm done with her. If she tries to beg for forgiveness, I'll show her the recordings of her and Todd at the cabin. That should shut her up. Sabrina gave a brisk nod. Your call. Eric looked away, swallowing the lump in his throat. A part of him hated this. Another part relished it. Conflicting emotions churned, but he'd chosen his path, and he wouldn't waver. Meanwhile, back in the city, Ivan sat in his office on a late afternoon. He'd just finished reviewing a new set of transaction logs. They uncovered something surprising. Todd had been diverting funds not just to personal resort stays or fancy dinners. He'd also attempted to funnel a significant chunk into an offshore account. The sum was large enough to raise immediate red flags about money laundering. Unbelievable, Ivan muttered, rubbing his temples. He dialed Eric's number, bracing for a tense conversation. Eric answered on the second ring. Ivan, news? Yes, news, Ivan replied, voice hushed. I've discovered a substantial amount, close to 70 grand, transferred from Safari Replica's accounts to an offshore entity. The timing lines up with Todd's romantic rendezvous with Amanda. Not sure if it's directly for her, or just Todd's stash. Either way, it's definitely embezzlement. Eric was silent for a beat. That's bigger than I expected. Ivan continued. This gives us a bulletproof reason to fire Todd for cause. No severance, no partial stake. We can basically sever him from the company with minimal legal blowback. Eric exhaled, relief mixed with anger. Good. That means the board will side with me. I can't believe how low he's gone. I'll proceed with the final freeze on all Todd's shares first thing tomorrow, Ivan said. You might want to be present or at least phone into the meeting. We'll make it official. Count on it, Eric said. You've done well, Ivan. Thanks. Ivan lowered his voice. Eric, I'm sorry this is so ugly. Todd clearly had it in for you. No need to apologize, he made his bed. I'm just finishing what he started. They hung up. Ivan felt a pang of sympathy for Eric. The man was unstoppable in business crises, but this was a personal betrayal of the highest order. He could only imagine the toll on Eric's psyche. That evening, Eric strolled through the resort garden paths, partly to clear his mind, partly to stay alert for Todd or Amanda's next move. The sky glowed with hues of pink and orange as the sun dipped below the horizon. A light breeze rustled the hedges, carrying a faint scent of pine from the surrounding hills. He turned a corner and nearly collided with Amanda alone, hugging herself as she stood near a row of manicured roses. She looked up, startled, then almost crumpled with relief to see him. Eric, she began. Her voice trembled, and her eyes were reed-rimmed from crying. Please, can we talk? I need to explain. He let out a quiet sigh through his nose. This is it. The emotional appeal Sabrina warned me about. He studied her face, searching for any genuine remorse. Explain what? That you cheated with my brother, lied about a conference, spent my money, and expected me to do nothing? Tears slipped down her cheeks. It started a while ago. Todd he was there at a time when I felt alone, and you were so busy with the company. I know that's no excuse, but I never wanted to hurt you like this. His voice turned icy. Then why did you keep doing it? She choked on a sob. It just grew. Todd convinced me it was harmless fun at first, and then it became an affair, obviously. But part of me was just lost, Eric. You were so distant, so perfect. Always in control, no cracks in your armor. I felt invisible. He stared at her, feeling a swirl of anger, sadness, even a trace of pity. You think I'm perfect? Amanda, I'm a man who built a business from the ground up, sure. But I always cared for you. If you felt invisible, you should have told me. Instead, you crawled into bed with Todd. She sniffled. I know. I'm so sorry. She stepped closer, tentatively placing a hand on his arm. Can't we at least try to fix this? Can't we talk to a counselor, see if there's anything salvageable? He recoiled from her touch, stepping back. You talk about salvage? I have footage of you giggling with Todd like newlyweds in that cabin. You used my money to finance your little rendezvous. I have no interest in reconciling, Amanda. Her shoulders shook. People make mistakes, Eric. Yes, it was a huge mistake. I messed up so bad. But if there's even a sliver of a chance, no, he snapped. There isn't. I'm filing for divorce. My lawyers are handling it. You'll be lucky if you're not forced to pay me restitution after all the ways you misused my resources. She flinched as though slapped. So that's it? You're just done with me? His eyes turned cold. Yes. You and Todd can go be happy together. Although I suspect you'll hate him once you realize how hollow he is without the company's resources. Good luck with that. She let out a sob, burying her face in her hands. Oh God, I'm such an idiot. Eric's jaw tightened. He felt that stirring of compassion again, but it was quickly drowned by images of Todd's hands on her body, images of them laughing at his supposed cluelessness. This is what she deserves. He turned on his heel and walked away, leaving her weeping among the rose bushes. In their cabin, Todd paced the small living room limp, notwithstanding trying desperately to reach a friend or associate who might lend him quick cash. The phone calls were fruitless, most going to voicemail. He cursed every time. When Amanda returned, eyes swollen from crying, Todd cornered her. Did you see him? Did you talk to Eric? She nodded, wiping her cheeks. He hates us, Todd. He's divorcing me. And he froze every account. Todd clenched his fists. I'll call some of my older business contacts. Maybe one of them will float me a loan. We just need a quick infusion so we can get out of here. Then, from home, we can— Home? Amanda interrupted bitterly. Eric's locked me out of the estate. My condo lease ended last month. That was my home with Eric. Now I have nowhere to stay. And you? If Eric's shutting you out of the company, how will you pay for anything? He scowled. I still have some influence. Once I talk to the board— Stop fooling yourself, Amanda snapped. Eric has evidence of your embezzlement. He can bury you. We're finished. Todd leaned against the wall, face pale. We can't let him do this. There has to be a way to spin it. She let out a hollow laugh. Spin it how, Todd? You think the board will pity you after you stole from the company's accounts? She sank onto the couch, tears brimming again. Everything's ruined. Todd slid down next to her, a mix of anger and despair in his eyes. We can't just roll over. If Eric thinks he can bully me out of my inheritance, he's not bullying. You did this to yourself. By dragging me into your secret fling, or was it me who dragged you? I can't even remember how it started. Todd ran a hand through his hair. Amanda, calm down. We're in this together. We should be united. She let out a strangled sob. Together we're broke and scorned. That's all we have. Bravo, Todd. He fell silent. The weight of their predicament pressed heavily in the dimly lit room. The brilliance of the resort's amenities just outside felt like a cruel joke, mocking their financial ruin. Night settled over the resort. Eric stood on the balcony of his own cabin, gazing at the distant silhouettes of pines. He had the divorce papers on the small table next to him, ready to be filed electronically in the morning. The finality of it all pressed on him. He thought back to the evening's confrontation with Amanda. Despite her tears, he couldn't forget how she'd chosen to remain with Todd, how she'd laughed in that cabin, how she'd lied for months. No, there's no going back. His phone buzzed. This time it was Elaine Ivan's wife, who'd been a friend to Amanda. He hesitated before answering. Elaine, he said quietly. Oh, Eric, hi, she began, voice shaky. I just got a call from Amanda, or at least a voicemail. She sounds absolutely devastated. She asked if I'd let her crash at our place for a while. Ivan told me not to get involved, but Eric's gaze hardened. Elaine, do not let her manipulate you. She brought this on herself, sleeping with Todd behind my back. You owe her nothing. Elaine's tone was pained. I know, but I can't help feeling sorry for her. You've effectively made her homeless. She was never going to be homeless if she'd had the slightest sense of decency, Eric countered. Or if Todd had any real plan besides stealing from me. Now they're stuck. Let them figure it out. A long pause. You're right, of course, Elaine murmured. I just hate seeing people in misery, even if they earned it. He softened slightly. I understand, but trust me. The best thing for them now is to face the real-world consequences. They chose betrayal. The rest is on them. Elaine sighed. All right, Eric. I won't respond to her. I just needed to hear your perspective. Take care, okay? He ended the call, exhaling heavily. People might view him as a vengeful man. Maybe he was, but he wasn't going to budge. They have to deal with this on their own, the same way I had to deal with their lies. Later that night, Eric found himself unable to sleep. He rummaged through his laptop, stumbling across old photos. There was Amanda in a bright sundress, beaming at him during a trip to the coast last summer. Todd stood next to them, smiling warmly, an arm slung around Eric's shoulder. They looked like a happy family, the perfect trifecta of closeness. He nearly deleted the entire folder out of anger, but something stopped him. This was history. He needed to remember that not long ago, he genuinely loved Amanda, admired Todd. Maybe he'd keep these photos to remind himself how illusions could shatter. He closed the laptop, feeling an odd twist in his chest. Tomorrow was the day of formal retribution. Todd would be fired from Safari Replicas, Amanda served with divorce papers. For better or worse, the old life he knew would be dead. Let it die, he told himself, so something stronger can rise in its place. The next morning, Eric left the resort early and drove back to the city. He had a board meeting scheduled at the Safari Replicas headquarters, where Ivan and a few select board members would formalize Todd's removal. Eric suspected Todd was still stuck at the resort, so the meeting should be a clean sweep. The corporate building stood tall, a sleek glass facade reflecting the morning light. Eric entered the lobby with a measured stride, acknowledging the receptionist's polite greeting. His staff sensed a tension in the air. Word had spread of an emergency board meeting. Up on the executive floor, Ivan greeted him with a grim nod. They're waiting, he said, then leaned in, voice low. Marjorie and Gerald have the official documents to terminate Todd's contract. All we need is your final sign-off as majority shareholder. Eric took a deep breath, steeling himself. Let's do it. In the boardroom, half a dozen faces turned toward Eric as he stepped in. The vibe was thick with anticipation. Marjorie Lynn, a composed woman in her 50s, spoke first. Eric, good morning. Let's proceed. They went through the meeting agenda swiftly. Ivan presented the data. Todd's unauthorized transfers, questionable expense reports, the suspicious offshore account. Gerald Price chimed in with a legal perspective on how Todd had breached multiple clauses. Finally, Marjorie turned to Eric. Based on the evidence, the board is prepared to vote on terminating Todd Hawkins from his executive role and revoking his partnership shares under the moral and fiduciary misconduct clause. Are you in full agreement, Eric? Eric's voice remained firm. Yes. Todd is no longer fit to be part of this company. Freeze his shares, remove his access, and proceed with legal action if necessary. A silent vote commenced unanimous in Eric's favor. Within minutes, the motion carried. Todd Hawkins was officially ousted from Safari Replicas. Marjorie tapped her pen on the table. We'll need to draft an official statement for the press if asked. Are we revealing the personal details or just the embezzlement aspect? Eric thought for a moment. Keep the statement strictly professional. Todd was removed for embezzlement and misconduct, period. No need to air personal scandals publicly unless forced. Gerald cleared his throat. There's one more matter, Todd's portion of ownership. He was a partial shareholder. What happens now? Ivan answered. We're legally allowed to reacquire his shares at minimal value given the breach. We can do so within 30 days. The cost to the company will be nominal compared to the damage Todd has inflicted. Eric nodded. We'll execute that buyback. Todd won't see a penny beyond the minimal legal requirement. Marjorie scribbled final notes. All right. The board stands by you, Eric. We trust your leadership moving forward. He thanked them, ended the session, and stepped out, feeling a mixture of triumph and sadness. The brother who once stood by his side in the business was now gone, completely erased from the corporate structure. He deserves it, Eric reminded himself. He tried to steal my wife and my company. After the meeting, Eric slipped into his private office. He locked the door, then pulled out his laptop to connect with Melinda Garcia, his divorce attorney. The final digital forms awaited his signature. He typed a quick message. Melinda, proceed with the official filing. Grounds, adultery, financial misconduct. Within minutes, the documents were assigned and transmitted. It was done. The marriage was effectively in the legal pipeline toward dissolution. A wave of relief coursed through him. No going back now. He glanced around the office that once felt like a second home, noticing how hollow he felt. Usually, finalizing a critical business move gave him a sense of excitement. But this was personal, and the sense of emptiness gnawed at him. I have everything I wanted, no Todd. No Amanda, so why do I feel so? He shook off the thought, focusing on the stack of pending tasks. The company needed him, especially now that Todd's exit might stir questions or rumors among employees. I'll bury myself in work if I have to. He was a master of discipline, after all. Back at High Point Wilderness Resort, Todd slammed the cabin door in frustration. The front desk had just informed him that the credit card on file was still declined, and the total charges for their extended stay were piling up. He had no way to pay. Amanda, sitting on the sofa with her phone pressed to her ear, shook her head. No signal. Again. I've tried calling Elaine, but she's not picking up. Maybe she blocked me. Todd paced back and forth, wincing at each step. I left half a dozen messages for old business contacts. They're either ghosting me or turning me down. He rubbed his face. Damn it, this can't be happening. Amanda's eyes flicked upward, a note of bitterness. It is happening. We're broke, fired, divorced, or soon to be. We've lost everything, Todd. He approached, kneeling awkwardly to meet her gaze. Amanda, listen. We can't give up. Once I get in front of the board, I can make a case that Eric's just using personal vendettas to... She cut him off with a laugh that bordered on hysterical. He has evidence of your stolen funds. He has proof of our affair. There is no case to be made. Don't you get it? We're done. Todd's voice trembled with anger. So that's it? You're just throwing in the towel? You want to go grovel to Eric for forgiveness? She flinched, tears brimming. He won't forgive me. He made that very clear. And after everything, I can't blame him. She stared at the floor. What are we going to do now? Sleep in Todd's SUV if we can fix the tires? Drift from motel to motel? He cursed under his breath. I'll figure something out. But his expression revealed the panic lurking behind his bravado. He had no real plan. He just knew he couldn't stand the shame of crawling back to Eric, or worse, facing criminal charges. Outside, the day was bright and cheerful, a cruel contrast to their gloom. The distant laughter of other resort guests filtered through the window, reminding them of a world that still turned while their own lives crumbled. That afternoon, a local mechanic arrived, responding to a belated request for a tow. Todd hobbled out to the parking lot, wallet in hand, Amanda trailing behind him anxiously. The mechanic, a tall man named Hank, surveyed the SUV with a professional eye. 2 front tires shot to hell, Hank remarked, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. Gonna cost you at least $600 to replace both, plus the tow. Another couple hundred. And that's not counting any hidden damage to the rims. Todd grimaced. Right. Sure. Let's, just do the basics. I'll handle the rest later. Hank cocked an eyebrow. That'll be payment up front. Card or cash. Todd reddened, offering the Safari replica's corporate card out of desperation. Hank ran it with a small handheld reader, declined. Todd tried another personal card, declined. Finally, Amanda tried her own, equally fruitless. The mechanic stared at them with mild pity. Look, folks, I got a business to run, Hank said, crossing his arms. If you can't pay, I can't do the work. You might want to call a friend or something. Amanda glanced at Todd, who merely shook his head in defeat. Hank let out a frustrated sigh. All right, I'll be on my way then. Call me if you figure out your payment situation. He hopped into his truck, leaving Todd and Amanda standing helplessly by the disabled SUV. A wave of anger surged in Todd's chest. Eric set this up, no doubt. Probably arranged for the sabotage in the first place. But even if that were true, he had no proof, just the bitterness of being outplayed. Amanda's voice broke through his thoughts. We're stranded, Todd. Truly stranded. He clenched his teeth. Then let's pack up our things. We'll start walking if we have to. She stared at him incredulously. Walk where? We're hours from the nearest bus station, and we have zero money for tickets anyway. You want to hitchhike with me in the middle of nowhere? Todd ran a hand through his hair in frustration, feeling claustrophobic. They had no credit, no car, no ally. Their only option might be to beg the resort for mercy, or to call Eric and grovel. But I'll die before I grovel, Todd thought. I'll figure something out early that evening. Eric stood in his high-rise apartment, gazing out the panoramic window at the city lights below. The day had been a whirlwind. He'd officially dethroned Todd, filed for divorce, and confirmed Amanda's meltdown at the resort. It was everything he meticulously planned. He took a sip of scotch, letting the warmth spread through his chest. A swirling mix of triumph and hollowness filled him. He'd won, no question. But what was victory in a scenario like this? He recalled a conversation he once had with his father years ago about the nature of success. Sometimes, son, you'll get exactly what you think you want, and it won't feel the way you expected. That's when you learn the difference between ambition and fulfillment. Eric scoffed at the memory. Dad, you never told me about the possibility that my own brother would try to ruin me. Yet perhaps his father's words applied. Ambition had driven him to demolish Todd and Amanda. Fulfillment, though he felt none. He grabbed his phone, scrolling through messages. Sabrina had sent a brief update. They're stuck. No money, no friends stepping up. They're screwed. He typed a simple acknowledgement, then paused. Should he do something else to drive the nail in deeper, or was enough enough? He closed his eyes, imagining the look on Todd's face if Eric personally delivered a final condemnation. No, he didn't need further drama. Let them rot. The sooner they realized they had no path forward, the sooner they'd leave him alone. That same night, Elaine approached Ivan in their living room, a worried frown creasing her brow. Ivan, I need to tell you something. Amanda called again, left another voicemail. She sounded truly desperate. Ivan sighed. You know Eric's stance. If we help her, we risk undermining his plan. Todd and Amanda could manipulate us into dragging Eric back into the mess. Elaine paced. But she's basically homeless, and Todd can't pay for anything. They're stuck in that resort like caged animals. Is it really so wrong to give them a couch for a night? Or, I don't know, some bus fare? He studied her, torn between loyalty to Eric and compassion for Elaine's empathy. Eric's plan is to push them to face consequences. If we intervene, we might undercut that. He's the victim here, Elaine, not them. She shook her head, tears glistening. I know, but Amanda used to be my friend. We talked about everything, her hopes, her frustrations. She made a terrible mistake, but oh, this is so complicated. Ivan placed a hand on her shoulder. Let's think carefully. If we help them behind Eric's back, it could blow up if he finds out. On the other hand, if we do nothing, Amanda might end up worse off, maybe drifting into more trouble, or Todd turning aggressive. Elaine bit her lip. I just don't want her to be hurt or in danger. This revenge scenario is going too far, maybe. Ivan frowned. I trust Eric, but I see your point. Let's keep listening. If things truly get dire, like life-threatening dire, maybe we quietly drop them a lifeline. But only if it's critical. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. All right, we wait. But it feels wrong to do nothing. Ivan hugged her, wishing he had a definitive answer. All because Todd and Amanda decided to betray the only man who ever gave them a chance. Life had a cruel sense of irony. Late that night, Todd paced the small bedroom in cabin 12, while Amanda dozed fitfully on the bed. A single lamp cast harsh shadows across the plain walls. Todd's mind raced with half-baked ideas, forging a new credit card, leveraging an old black market contact, claiming Eric's sabotage as a crime. None of them felt remotely feasible. He paused at the window, gazing out at the moonlit forest. The memory of that bear encounter flashed in his mind, kindling a suspicion that the entire fiasco was orchestrated by Eric. The man was cunning enough to do it. That much Todd knew. "This is war," Todd muttered under his breath. "He wants me to vanish like some disgraced criminal? I refuse." He clutched his phone, useless with no funds to pay for data or calls. "I'll find a way," he whispered, glaring at the night sky. "I'll find a way to turn the tables or at least cause Eric some pain." But how? Todd had no resources. His phone beeped with a low battery warning. Damn it. If he couldn't contact anyone, he was stuck. A single wild notion hit him. What if I show up at Eric's doorstep, force him to face me one and none? He can't ignore me then. But how would Todd even get there? He could barely limp across the resort yard without wincing. He sank onto the floor, back against the window. The humiliating truth settled in. He was powerless now, dependent on the scraps that fate might toss him. Amanda's meltdown, the resort staff's pity. He let out a bitter laugh, imagining Eric's smirk. "You win, Eric, you bastard." Yet his pride refused to let him wave the white flag. If an opportunity arose, Todd would seize at any chance to salvage dignity or exact retribution. For now, though, the forest's quietness mocked his impotence. 2 days later, Eric found himself driving back toward High Point Wilderness Resort, accompanied by Sabrina in the passenger seat. He'd initially planned never to see the place again, but a small loose end required attention. He'd left certain specialized drone equipment there, plus there were a few final, subtle arrangements to ensure Todd and Amanda couldn't claim any partial rights or cause trouble at the resort. Sabrina held a folder with documents, disclaimers from the resort manager acknowledging that Eric's personal gear was used for wildlife observation, not malicious intent. Eric was thorough. He didn't want any legal blowback if Todd tried to sue for harassment. They wound along the same gravel road. The forest soared around them, shadows dancing across the windshield. Eric's heart thumped heavier as they passed the spot where Todd's SUV had been sabotaged. The memory of that stealthy sniper shot lingered in his mind. He felt no guilt, only a sense of closure. "So," Sabrina said, flipping through the folder, "we finalized the retrieval. Maybe have a quick chat with the manager, then head out. Right?" "Right," Eric replied. "I don't plan on staying longer than necessary." She nodded, tapping the folder. "Just be prepared, there's a chance we'll bump into Todd or Amanda. They're still stuck here from what my contact said yesterday." He gripped the wheel. "Let them keep their distance. I have nothing left to say." They parked near the resort lodge around noon. The day was breezy, the sun filtered by thin clouds overhead. Eric stepped out, adjusting his jacket. Sabrina accompanied him, scanning the surroundings with her ex-military vigilance. They made their way toward the main doors when a familiar figure appeared from behind a parked SUV. Todd, leaning on his makeshift cane. He locked eyes with Eric, rage flaring. Amanda trailed behind him, looking worn but anxious. Sabrina tensed. "Want me to handle this?" she murmured. Eric shook his head. "No, I'll see what he wants." Todd hobbled closer, expression twisted. "Eric," he spat, "so you show your face again. Here to gloat some more?" Eric's gaze was stone-cold. "I'm here on business, not your concern." Amanda hovered near Todd, arms folded tightly. She glanced at Eric with pained eyes. "Please, Eric, can we have a moment?" Sabrina stepped forward, arms at her sides, ready to intervene if needed. Todd glared at her. "Who the hell is this? Another of your pawns?" Eric's lips tightened. "She's my associate. Stay civil." Todd let out a bitter laugh. "You destroyed me, Eric. You froze my accounts, got me fired, turned the board against me. Congratulations, you won." Eric's voice was calm. "No, Todd. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided to betray me. I just expedited the consequences." Amanda's voice trembled. "Eric, we have nowhere to go. The resort is threatening to call the police if we can't settle the bill by tomorrow. We're effectively—" She bit back a sob. "Homeless." Eric's gaze flicked to Sabrina, then back to Amanda. "And you think that's my problem? If you want me to pay off your debt, think again. I owe you nothing." Todd's knuckles went white on his cane. Can you have an ounce of compassion? We were family once. You could end this. Eric stepped closer, lowering his voice so only they could hear. End it? You ended it. You tried to rip me off. You slept with my wife. You laughed behind my back. Compassion? That's long gone. Amanda whimpered, shoulders shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered for the 100th time. I'm so sorry. If I could take it back. He cut her off. Too late. Todd's eyes burned. You're a real piece of work, Eric. Acting all righteous when we both know you enjoyed orchestrating our humiliation. Eric shrugged. Yes, I did. Because it's justice. Now get out of my way. He attempted to brush past, Sabrina at his side. Amanda grabbed Eric's sleeve in a last, desperate gesture. Please, just enough money for a bus ticket or a ride to the city. Something. I'll sign anything you want. Eric halted, meeting her teary gaze. A swirl of memories flickered, shared laughs, warm nights, wedding vows. He hardened. No, you belong to Todd now. Let him fix it. Todd barked a harsh laugh. I can't fix anything. You made sure of that. You gutted me financially. Eric's eyes gleamed cold. You gutted yourself. This conversation is over. Sabrina gently pried Amanda's hand off Eric's sleeve. Move aside, she told them, voice quiet but firm. With that, Eric and Sabrina continued into the lodge, leaving Todd and Amanda behind like tattered ghosts in the parking lot. Inside, Eric met the resort manager, a middle-aged woman named Rhonda Keller, who looked both uneasy and curious. Mr. Hawkins, I heard there's been difficulties with your brother's stay. Eric maintained a polite demeanor. We're estranged now. I'm just here to finalize retrieval of some personal property used for wilderness observation. My associate has the paperwork. Sabrina produced the folder, flipping it open. Rhonda scanned the forms, nodding. Yes, that all looks in order. We appreciate you clarifying that your drone usage was strictly for wildlife and marketing visuals. He forced a small smile. Of course. Rhonda hesitated. About Todd, we've had repeated complaints from staff that he's refusing to vacate or pay. There's an outstanding balance of nearly $2,000. We might have to involve law enforcement if it's not settled by tomorrow. Eric nodded calmly. I understand. That's between you and Todd. I have no involvement. She pursed her lips. All right. We just wanted to confirm your stance. Sabrina stepped in. We'll collect Eric's drone and any related gear now. Where is it stored? Rhonda directed them to a back office near the conference wing. They followed her, Eric's footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. He tried to ignore the pang of lingering bitterness. This is the final loose end. In the back office, a locked cabinet held Eric's specialized drone. Rhonda unlocked it, revealing a sleek black case. Eric checked inside, verifying the equipment. He noticed the memory card was missing. Sabrina had retrieved it long ago. He nodded. Looks good. Sabrina signed the release form. Rhonda gave them a polite farewell. As they stepped out, Eric felt a weight lift. He turned to Sabrina. I think we're done here. She gave a half smile. Ready to go? He exhaled. Yes, let's get the hell out. Making their way back through the lobby, Eric glimpsed Todd slumped in a chair by a side corridor, head bowed. Amanda wasn't visible. Todd must have seen them out of the corner of his eye because he slowly rose, leaning heavily on the cane. Eric tensed, but Todd just watched him with hollow eyes as they passed. No words, no pleas. For a split second, Eric detected a flash of pure hatred on Todd's face. Then Todd looked away, eyes red with a mix of shame and resentment. They exited the building, stepping into the fresh air. Eric suppressed a tremor. He felt Sabrina's gaze. You good? She asked softly. I'm good, he answered. But inside, a swirl of conflicting emotions churned. Todd's silent, haunted stare told him the bitterness ran deep, perhaps fueling a desire for revenge. But what can Todd do now? He's powerless. They got into Eric's car, the drone case placed in the back. Eric ignited the engine, breathing easier as they pulled onto the road leading out of the resort. He glanced in the rearview mirror, glimpsing the receding silhouette of the lodge. Good riddance. Moments after Eric left, Amanda re-emerged from the restroom, found Todd in the corridor, face drawn. He murmured, He just walked by, didn't even speak to me. She cradled her forehead. So that's it then. He's really left. Todd gave a single short nod, swallowing the bitter lump in his throat. We're on our own. A tear slid down Amanda's cheek. We were always on our own. We just never faced it until now. They trudged back to their cabin, no plan in sight, the horizon of their future bleak as a stormy night. That same afternoon, Elaine sat at her kitchen table fiddling with her phone. Another voicemail from Amanda appeared. She braced herself and played it on speaker. "Elaine, it's me again. We're so desperate. Please, if you can spare even $100, we could get a bus out of here. I know Eric hates us, but please, I'm begging you. I have nowhere else to turn." Elaine paused the message, tears stinging her eyes. She chewed her lip, remembering the good times she'd shared with Amanda girls' nights. Silly jokes, heartfelt confessions. Amanda messed up so badly, but does she deserve to be stranded? She dialed Ivan, who was still at the office. "Honey, it's me." Amanda called again, begging for $100. Just enough for a bus, apparently. Ivan sighed. "This is exactly what we agreed to avoid, Elaine. If we funnel them money, Eric might see it as a betrayal. He's the one who was wronged." She sniffed. "Yes, but leaving them literally starving is harsh. If they can at least get on a bus, they might find a cheap motel. I can't just ignore her." Ivan hesitated, wrestling with his loyalty to Eric and the basic human decency that Elaine championed. "If we do this, we do it quietly. We never tell Eric." Elaine exhaled, relief washing over her. "Okay, yes. Just enough to get them on a bus." They agreed. She texted Amanda discreetly, instructing her to create a quick digital payment app account. Elaine planned to transfer a small sum. She tried to quell the guilt simmering, praying Eric wouldn't find out. Evening arrived. Amanda, phone in hand, saw Elaine's message confirming a small deposit. She breathed a shaky sigh. "Todd, we have a bit of money now, just enough for a bus out of here. Let's pack." Todd sat hunched on the edge of the bed, Kane leaning nearby. He lifted his head. "Where would we even go? Another motel? That'll run out fast." "We'll be back in the same boat." Amanda bit her lip. "Then we at least get away from here. We can maybe stay with a distant cousin or something, I don't know. But we can't remain at the mercy of the staff if they call the cops." He nodded reluctantly, eyes flicking to the window. "Fine, let's do it. I can't stand seeing Eric's smirk in every corner." They gathered their minimal belongings. The lodge's front desk staff gave them one last warning about the unpaid bill. Amanda quietly promised they'd pay eventually. Then they limped outside in the twilight, aiming for the rural bus stop about 3 miles down the main road. Amanda turned to look back at the resort lights one final time, tears in her eyes. Todd avoided looking back altogether. Step by shuffling step, they left behind the site of their downfall, each uncertain if the future held any redemption. Meanwhile, Eric dined alone in his apartment, a simple dinner of chicken and steamed vegetables that tasted like sawdust on his tongue. The TV droned in the background with some business news channel. He hardly listened. His phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina. "Todd and Amanda left the resort on foot. Staff says they're gone. Thought you should know." He stared at the screen, a wave of finality washing over him. "They're gone. Good." Another text from Ivan. "Board is satisfied with Todd's removal. The matter is closed." He set the phone aside. The day had come to a close, his enemies in tatters, his revenge near complete. Yet there was no euphoria, just a dull sense of emptiness. What now? He sipped a glass of water, staring at the city lights. Slowly a thought formed. Maybe after all this, he could channel his energy into new expansions for safari replicas or philanthropic endeavors, something constructive. He wouldn't let bitterness define him. I got my revenge. Now I rebuild myself. The notion brought a small flicker of hope. He rose to clear the table, his mind drifting to the future. The phone remained silent, no calls from Todd or Amanda. Good, he told himself again. That's how it should be. Eric Hawkins had never liked hospitals, the sterile smell, the stark white walls, the low hum of machinery. Yet here he was, wandering the corridors of a small suburban medical center, trying to ignore the knots tightening in his gut. Days had passed since Todd and Amanda fled High Point Wilderness Resort, apparently hitching a bus out of town. Eric had assumed he'd seen the last of them. He'd gone home, finalized the corporate reorganization, and started the grim process of dismantling everything in his personal life that reminded him of that humiliating betrayal. But then came the call from local authorities. Todd Hawkins had been admitted to this facility with severe dehydration and a badly infected ankle. The number of next-of-kin contacts Todd had left behind apparently included Eric. Did Todd do that cynically, or had he simply forgotten to remove Eric's name years ago? Eric didn't know. All he knew was that the hospital staff called him yesterday, saying Todd needed a caretaker, or at least someone to sign certain release forms. Eric had hesitated for hours. Why should he care? Todd had chosen his path. He deserved the consequences. Yet something had propelled Eric into his car that morning. Maybe curiosity, maybe the last vestige of familial obligation. So here he was, scanning the color-coded signs until he found room 218. A swirl of conflicting emotions churned in his chest. When he stepped inside, he found Todd propped up in bed, half-conscious, an IV in his arm. Amanda was slumped on a nearby plastic chair, her hair greasy, her posture exhausted. She looked up, startled, and a flash of something relief or shame crossed her face. Todd blinked, focusing bleary eyes on Eric. "You came," he croaked, his voice ragged. Eric lingered in the doorway, arms folded. "The hospital called me, said you were in no shape to handle your own paperwork." Amanda stood, wringing her hands. "He got an infection from that twisted ankle. We ran out of money for motel rooms, so we've been basically drifting." Todd collapsed outside a grocery store. Someone called an ambulance. Eric forced down a spike of anger. "You want me to pity you now? And what do you want from me? Sign forms so you can skip out on the bill?" Amanda's cheeks burned. "No, we're not skipping out. The staff insisted on an emergency contact. I told them to call you. I had no one else." Eric's lips curled. He stepped forward, ignoring the stench of stale sweat that clung to the cramped room. "You always have, Todd. Isn't that enough?" A flicker of pain crossed Amanda's face. She glanced at Todd, who looked away, apparently too weak to muster his usual bitterness. Todd finally spoke, voice raw. "I guess I'm still on your insurance from back when we co-owned the business. Didn't realize you never took me off." Eric's gut tightened. Indeed, he'd forgotten to remove Todd from the old corporate health plan after the buyout, a leftover detail from the early days. He sighed. "What do the doctors say?" Amanda rubbed her temple. "They want to keep him for another day or two, to pump him with antibiotics. After that, they'll discharge him. But we have nowhere to go." Her voice cracked. "Eric, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but is there any chance you can help?" He stared at her, noticing the dark rings under her eyes, the hollowness in her cheeks. If she'd ever had illusions of a glamorous life with Todd, they were certainly gone now. And Todd, once robust and cocky, lay frail, eyes haunted. "They're like ghosts." Eric's instinct roared, "No, they're not your responsibility. They tried to ruin you." Yet a small voice whispered that Todd was still his brother once, and Amanda, for all her betrayal, had been his wife. He balled his fists. "I'll sign the damn form so the hospital can proceed. That's all." Amanda's gaze fell to the floor. "Thank you." He moved to the corner, spoke quietly with a nurse, scribbling his signature on a few documents acknowledging Todd's coverage. Then, returning to the bed, Eric said, "Don't read too much into this. I'm just making sure you don't skip on the hospital bill under my name." Todd gave a short laugh that turned into a grimace of pain. "You must be loving this, huh? Seeing me like this?" Eric's jaw clenched. "I don't love anything about you." Amanda wiped her eyes. "Where do we go once Todd is discharged? We can't afford another motel. We tried staying with a friend, but he kicked us out after 2 nights. Eric nearly spat back. "Not my problem." But a flicker of old memory, 2 scruffy kids playing catch in their backyard decades ago, a sister-in-law who once beamed at him on their wedding day, made him hesitate. "We'll talk about it tomorrow," he growled. "I can't think in this place. I'll see if I can find a cheap rehab facility or something." He turned to leave before he could second-guess himself, ignoring Todd's attempts to speak, ignoring Amanda's parted lips that might form another desperate plea. Outside, the hospital corridors felt oppressively bright. Eric clenched and unclenched his hands. He'd come this far, undone Todd's entire life, but watching him reduced to a broken figure on a hospital bed felt more hollow than triumphant. I wanted them to suffer, he reminded himself. They got what they deserved. Still, a coil of tension lodged in his chest, refusing to release. That evening, Eric retreated to his apartment. The city lights glowed beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows, a familiar neon comfort. He poured himself a glass of water. It was too early for the scotch, and his mind felt too cluttered for drinking. He called Sabrina, who answered in her usual crisp tone. "Hey, Eric?" He exhaled. "Todd's in a hospital in the suburbs. Got an infected ankle and dehydration. They used my old insurance somehow." A pause. "You're not actually paying for his treatment, are you?" He paced the living room. "Technically, the policy might cover it. I forgot to remove him. The hospital needed me to sign off since I'm the policyholder. I told them to handle it. Todd's on the verge of being discharged with nowhere to go." Sabrina let out a low whistle. "That's messy. Are you feeling obligated to do anything? Because you don't have to, you know." He stared at his reflection in the window, the reflection of a man who'd orchestrated near-total destruction of his wife and brother. "I told them I'd see what I could do tomorrow. But frankly, a big part of me wants to walk away." She was silent for a moment. "Eric, I'm not your conscience, but you crushed them financially, socially, and psychologically. Is it possible that offering them a minimal lifeline now wouldn't undermine your revenge but might give you closure?" He grimaced. "Maybe. Or maybe letting them stew is closure enough." Sabrina's tone softened. "Look, I've seen guys like Todd become desperate, sometimes dangerous. If you keep stepping on his neck, he might lash out violently at you or at Amanda. If that's not your goal, and I doubt you want actual tragedy, maybe a small gesture, like covering a bus ticket or hooking them up with a short rehab lodging, could diffuse the worst outcomes." Eric recalled the flicker of hatred in Todd's eyes at the resort. He might still want revenge. "I hear you, but I also don't want to be manipulated. Amanda tried tears. Todd tried self-pity." Sabrina chuckled darkly. "You're the one in power. Give them the barest minimum if you want or walk away, but do it eyes wide open." He ended the call soon after, unsettled. No matter how he twisted it, he felt cornered by an ethical dilemma. He wanted Todd and Amanda to suffer but not die. They were the ones who broke me. I rebuilt myself. Do I owe them anything? He stared at the city skyline, the weight of the decision pressing. Tomorrow I'll go see Todd. I'll figure something out. Across town, Elaine stared at her phone, rereading the last text from Amanda. After sending them that small amount for the bus at High Point, Elaine felt both relief and guilt. She'd heard nothing since. She assumed they'd use the money to escape. Now Amanda had texted a cryptic note. "Hospital in Glendale. Todd's ankle got worse. Wish me luck." Elaine's heart twisted. She couldn't deny a pang of sympathy. She confided in Ivan, who sat at their kitchen table scrolling through business emails. "Todd's in the hospital, apparently." Ivan grunted. "Serves him right for not seeking proper care earlier." She frowned. "Yes, but he's your best friend's brother, and Amanda, she was my friend. We're partially responsible for how extreme Eric's revenge was." Ivan set his phone down. "We just followed Eric's instructions. Todd brought this on himself." Elaine gnawed her lip. "Sometimes I wonder if Eric regrets how far he's taken things. I know he's unstoppable when crossed, but I see a sadness in him too." Ivan's gaze softened. "We can't fix Eric's pain or Todd's stupidity. All we can do is not make things worse." They fell silent, the hum of the refrigerator filling the background. Outside, a drizzle began, tapping against the window. Elaine prayed that this saga would end peacefully, though she sensed more turbulence ahead. The next day, Eric returned to the hospital. He found Todd upright in bed, the color somewhat returned to his cheeks. Amanda hovered by the window, arms folded. The small room smelled of antiseptic. Eric nodded curtly. "Doctor says you'll be discharged soon." Todd grimaced. "Yeah, in an hour or two. They said the infection's under control. I can walk a bit, but I'm still weak." Amanda spoke quietly. They'll give us some antibiotics to take home. She paused, then corrected herself. To wherever. Eric leaned against the wall. So, do you have any plan? Todd let out a humorless chuckle. Plan? Right. Let's see, I'm broke. Blacklisted from the company I helped build, my brother hates me, and my wife. He glanced at Amanda. Well, ex-wife Toby, I guess, is in the same boat. Amanda's face flushed. If you can just help us find a cheap place for a week, maybe, or even a halfway house. Todd can recover while we figure out something long-term. Eric's instincts flared. They want more money. But he recalled Sabrina's words about diffusing a desperate situation. There's a battered old property on the outskirts of the city. Belonged to our father's friend. I think it's vacant. Could be used for short-term lodging if you don't mind it being a dump. I can call him. A flicker of surprise crossed Todd's face. You'd do that? Eric shrugged. It's not charity, Todd. I just don't want you sleeping under a bridge, then blaming me when you die of pneumonia. You can stay there for 2 weeks. Then you're on your own. Amanda's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. That's more than we expected. Todd looked away. His voice held a faint edge. I won't grovel, but yeah. Thanks. Eric's lip curled. He exhaled, feeling the tension in the room. I'll talk to the guy who owns it. If it's available, you can move in tomorrow. Don't expect heat or anything fancy. Amanda nodded quickly. It's better than nothing. Eric's gaze rested on Todd's bandaged ankle. You might need a few days of rest. Don't push yourself. Todd turned bitter eyes on Eric. Why the sudden concern? Eric's jaw tightened. Don't mistake it for concern. You're not out of the woods. I just prefer not to see you rotting in a hospital on my insurance. They locked eyes, a silent exchange of anger, regret, and the remnants of brotherhood. Amanda cleared her throat. So, you'll call us with the details? Eric offered a curt nod, then turned to go. Before stepping out, he paused. Stay out of trouble, Todd. It won't end well if you try anything against me. Todd's jaw clenched. I'm not an idiot. Eric left without another word. In the corridor, he inhaled. The swirl of conflicting emotions threatened to overwhelm him. Why am I even helping them? Because part of him needed closure, needed to ensure Todd wouldn't spiral into an even darker form of revenge. Eric contacted Mr. Kramer, an old associate of his father, who owned a rundown property in a semi-industrial area. The place had once been a caretaker's cottage for an abandoned warehouse site. Kramer was happy to let Eric's friends crash there for a short while, as long as they kept it clean and didn't mind the lack of utilities beyond electricity and cold water. It took little effort to finalize. The next day, Eric texted Amanda. Amanda replied, Thank you. We'll get there tomorrow. Todd out of hospital. He read her words, feeling a pang. We'll get there tomorrow. The life they had was so thoroughly undone that this bleak caretaker's cottage was a step up. You wanted them broken. Now you see how broken they truly are. He cast his phone aside, burying the guilt behind a wall of logic. They caused this. Let them live with it. 4 days later, Eric couldn't resist driving by the caretaker's cottage. He told himself it was to ensure the property wasn't vandalized. He had no illusions about Todd's desperation. He pulled up in his SUV at twilight, the abandoned warehouse looming behind a chain-link fence. Weeds choked the lot, and a single street lamp flickered overhead. The cottage itself was a tiny structure with chipped paint, a sagging porch, and a plywood-patched window. Eric spotted Todd's hunched figure on the porch, staring into the distance, Kane leaning on the wall. Eric parked discreetly. He didn't plan to chat, but Todd heard the engine and turned his head, eyes narrowing. Eric, he acknowledged in a flat tone. Eric got out, scanning the surroundings. A single light bulb in the cottage's living room glowed weakly, indicating at least some power. I just wanted to see if you're trashing the place or not. Todd snorted softly. If you're worried, come in and look around. Eric hesitated, then ascended the rickety porch steps. The smell of musty air wafted from inside. Charming. He stepped in, noticing Amanda kneeling in the corner, scrubbing the floor with a rag. She wore a faded hoodie, hair tied back. She froze, turning to see Eric. Everything okay? He asked bluntly. She stood, wiping sweat from her brow. We're managing. The water's cold, but it works. We found an old mattress in the back. It's not great, but... She trailed off helplessly. Eric's gaze traveled over the peeling wallpaper, the cracked linoleum. A single battered sofa sat along one wall. Could be worse, he said, voice devoid of real warmth. Todd shuffled inside, leaning heavily on the cane. Amanda's been cleaning. No rodents so far, that's a plus. Eric nodded. He reached into his coat pocket, retrieving a small grocery bag with instant noodles, canned soup, and a cheap can opener. He placed it on the chipped table. It's not much, but it'll keep you alive for a few days. Amanda's eyes welled with tears. She bit her lip, nodding her gratitude. Todd's face remained impassive. Thanks, he muttered. Eric looked around one more time, noticing the dryness in his throat. Well, you've got 2 weeks. After that, I expect you to clear out. I'll talk to Mr. Kramer, see if an extension is possible, but don't count on it. Amanda clasped her hands. Thank you, Eric. We appreciate it. Todd stared at the floor, silent. Eric turned on his heel to leave, but paused at the threshold. One more thing. If you try any stunts like blaming me publicly for your downfall, or claiming I sabotaged you, I'll respond with the evidence of your affair, your embezzlement, everything. Understood? Todd's expression darkened, but he nodded. I get it. Amanda swallowed hard. We won't cause trouble. With that, Eric left. Outside, the chilly air felt like a slap. He exhaled shakily, climbing back into his SUV. The caretaker's cottage receded in the mirror as he drove away. He'd never imagined seeing Todd and Amanda living like outcasts. Part of him felt grim satisfaction. Part of him felt something he couldn't name. A week later, life at Safari Replicas was in full swing. The firm thrived without Todd's meddling. Eric poured his energy into an expansion plan that would take them into Europe, a massive deal with a chain of theme parks. One afternoon, he sat in a glass-walled conference room with Ivan and a visiting European investor, Benedict Krauss. Krauss, a tall German man with impeccable manners, was discussing a significant capital injection in exchange for a minority stake in Safari Replicas. Eric's phone buzzed mid-meeting. He normally would have ignored it, but he glimpsed the caller ID, Sabrina. Something about that gave him pause. He excused himself briefly, stepping into the hallway. Sabrina? He said softly. I'm in a meeting. Her voice carried urgency. Eric, you need to know. The caretaker's cottage burned down last night. His pulse spiked. What? An electrical short, apparently. The place was old, wiring messed up. Todd and Amanda got out, but they lost what little they had. They're not injured, but they're homeless again. He gripped the phone, mind reeling. Where are they now? No idea. The neighbor saw them run out after midnight. They might have gone to a shelter or a motel. I'm just passing the info along. The property owner is furious. He might blame you, but it seems it was an accident. Eric's stomach twisted. He forced calm. Thanks, Sabrina. Keep me updated if you hear more. He returned to the conference room, but Krauss's words blurred into background noise. The caretaker's cottage had been his final concession to Todd and Amanda, and now it was gone. They truly can't catch a break. Ivan noticed Eric's distracted air. After Krauss left, he asked quietly, All good, Eric? Eric exhaled. No. Todd and Amanda apparently had a fire at that place I arranged. They're on the street again. Ivan frowned. Jesus, are they okay? Eric shrugged. Sabrina says they got out unhurt. That's all I know. Ivan's gaze flickered with concern. What are you going to do about them now? Eric rubbed his temples. Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me says it's not my problem. Another part can't shake the guilt. Ivan set a hand on Eric's shoulder. You do what you think is right. Nobody said revenge would be clean. Eric forced a tight nod. Inside, he felt the swirl intensify, anger, exasperation, and a flicker of pity. Am I destined to keep cleaning up after them? That evening, Eric poured a stiff drink, no illusions about it being too early now. The amber liquid glinted in the lamp's glow of his penthouse living room. He sank onto the leather couch, letting the city lights sprawl beneath him like a shimmering tapestry. His phone lay on the coffee table, silent. He half expected Amanda to call, begging for yet another lifeline. Perhaps she'd decided there was no point after all. He took a long sip, mind drifting back to the first time he and Todd built a business plan together. Todd, fresh from some half-baked marketing gig, bursting with enthusiasm to join Eric's new venture. The two of them hammered out ideas late into the night, high on coffee and the naive thrill of forging something from scratch. Back then, I trusted him implicitly. Now he was alone, scotch in hand, with Todd apparently sleeping in an alley or some rundown shelter. And Amanda, once the woman he'd thought would be by his side forever, was presumably huddled next to Todd. His throat tightened. This is what you wanted, right? A decade of marriage and brotherhood, undone. The scotch burned as it slid down. His phone buzzed, jolting him. He checked the screen. Elaine. Surprised, he answered. Elaine? She sounded hesitant. Eric, hi. This is awkward. But Amanda called me. She and Todd are in some flophouse by the railroad tracks downtown. It's dangerous. She's begging me for a place to stay just for a few days. He stiffened. And you're telling me this because... Elaine sighed. Because I don't want to do anything behind your back. If you say no, I'll respect it. Eric's fingers drummed on the couch. What exactly is she asking for? Just a couch, I guess. Todd apparently can't walk too well still. They have no money for anything. The caretaker's cottage burned. They're desperate. He inhaled, a wave of frustration surging. Elaine, you realize you'd be dragging them back into my orbit. I've made it clear I'm done. She was silent a moment. Yes. But do you truly want them on the street? Amanda was crying, Eric. She sounded so broken. His jaw tightened. Why do you still care after how she betrayed me? Elaine's voice wavered. I don't condone her actions, but I was her friend once. I can't stand the thought of them possibly getting mugged or worse in that area. If they stay here, at least they're safe. Then they can figure out a plan that doesn't involve you. He considered, swirling the scotch. Part of him wanted to forbid any help, but another part recognized that Elaine was an adult who could do as she pleased. If Todd and Amanda stayed with Elaine, would that even affect him directly? Possibly. But maybe it'd keep them from pestering him. He exhaled. Elaine, do what you want. I'm not your father. Just don't expect me to fund anything. If Todd tries to turn your home into a drama fest, that's on you. And if he tries to spin some sob story to the press, I'll bury him. She swallowed. I understand. So you're not forbidding it? A mirthless laugh escaped him. I'm not your boss, but I'd advise caution. Todd can be manipulative. Keep your valuables locked, your eyes open. Thank you, Eric. And I'm sorry for the tension this might cause. He ended the call, shoulders sagging. This entire fiasco was like a hydra cut off one head. Two more emerged. He gulped the rest of his drink, a bitter taste lingering. 24 hours later, Elaine found herself opening the door of her modest suburban home to reveal a haggard Todd and a teary-eyed Amanda. The tension in the air was palpable as they stepped inside, each lugging a worn duffel bag. Thank you, Amanda whispered. Todd just nodded, leaning on his cane. Ivan stood in the hallway, arms crossed, a polite but wary expression on his face. He didn't greet them with warmth, just a simple, "Come on in. Try to keep it down. It's late." Amanda's eyes darted around the cozy living room with pictures of Elaine and Ivan's wedding, memories of happier times. She swallowed hard, setting her duffel near the couch. We truly appreciate this. Ivan gave a short nod. We can't host you long, maybe a week. After that, we'll see. Todd sank onto the couch, wincing at his ankle. Better than the flophouse. Thanks. Elaine forced a small smile. I'll get you some blankets. The couch is all we have to offer, Todd. Amanda can take the guest room. Amanda's gaze flicked to Todd, then to Ivan. She nodded. All right, thank you. That's more than we deserve. Ivan suppressed a sigh, heading to the kitchen. Let's at least feed you something. Behind him, Elaine took note of Todd's pained expression. She wondered if his ankle was still infected. He looked so different from the confident older brother figure she once knew. The entire scene felt surreal, a collision of pity, guilt, and old loyalties. Later that evening, Elaine texted Eric. They arrived. We're letting them stay for a week, no more. They look rough. Eric read the message while finishing a late-night round of emails regarding the European expansion. He typed back, "All right, if they cause trouble, kick them out." I washed my hands of it. He wasn't sure if he felt relief or annoyance. Part of him was grateful they weren't rotting on the street, which meant less chance of catastrophic news. Another part fumed that they'd landed in his friend's home, bridging a gap he'd tried to maintain. He forced himself to focus on business. The contract with Kraus needed final polishing. He wanted to ensure Safari replicas soared internationally, a testament to his resilience. If Todd learned of Eric's new success, well, that was just one more reminder of who truly won. 2 days into Todd and Amanda's stay, the atmosphere grew strained. Todd's ankle was healing slowly, though he still limped. Amanda tried to tidy up, wash dishes, and be helpful. But the underlying friction with Ivan was obvious. One morning, Ivan found Todd rifling through a desk drawer in the living room. "Looking for something?" Ivan asked coldly. Todd jerked upright. "Just needed a pen," he muttered. Ivan glared. "Ask next time. That's my personal space." Todd scowled but said nothing. The unspoken tension crackled in the air. Meanwhile, Amanda attempted to chat with Elaine over coffee, apologizing again for her past deceptions. Elaine nodded politely, but a shadow of hurt lingered in her eyes. Amanda sighed. "I know you can't trust me, but I never meant for it to get this bad. Todd and we were foolish. Eric's punishment is so thorough. We've lost everything." Elaine pursed her lips. "He gave you many chances to stop, to come clean, but you didn't. This is what happens." A tear slipped down Amanda's cheek. "I know. Every morning I wake up wishing I could rewind time." They lapsed into silence, the beep of the coffee maker filling the awkwardness. In the evenings, Todd found himself stewing in the living room, foot propped on a cushion while Ivan scrolled on his phone across from him. Amanda often retreated early to the guest room, leaving the men in uneasy proximity. One night, Todd broke the silence. "So how's the business? You must be doing well with Eric at the helm." Ivan's gaze flicked up, suspicion in his tone. "Yes, quite well. Expanding internationally soon." Todd's fist clenched on his cane. "I see. So Eric just replaced me. Soared higher. No regrets." Ivan shrugged. "You robbed the company, Todd. Don't expect sympathy." Todd's eyes blazed. "I gave years of my life to that company. I helped Eric grow it. And one mistake—" "Mistake?" Ivan's voice rose. "You call screwing your brother's wife and embezzling tens of thousands a mistake? You tore it all down, not Eric. Don't rewrite history." Todd glowered. "You're all brainwashed by Eric's perfect persona. He's not so innocent. He's cold, controlling. He forced Amanda away. I was just the scapegoat." Ivan scoffed. "Keep telling yourself that. But I was there. You lied, used corporate funds, destroyed Eric's trust. You did that." Todd seethed, gripping his cane. The men glared at each other, anger thick in the air. After a tense moment, Todd muttered, "Screw this," and lurched to his feet, limping toward the front porch. Ivan watched him go, exhaling. If Todd's resentment festered, it might explode. But frankly, Ivan didn't care if Todd stewed in bitterness. He brought this on himself. Meanwhile, Amanda found no solace in the small guest room Elaine provided. Each night, she lay awake, haunted by memories of the last year her betrayal, the lake cabin rendezvous, that humiliating moment in the resort lobby when Eric publicly exposed her. She'd once felt a rebellious thrill sneaking around with Todd, certain Eric was too busy or too rigid to notice. Now she realized how badly she'd miscalculated. Tears often stained her pillow. She missed the security Eric provided, the sense of stability. Todd, for all his initial charm, had turned sullen and prone to blaming everyone else. She also missed Elaine's carefree friendship. Now every conversation was laced with tension and pity. She'd tried calling a former co-worker for job leads, but word had spread about her unprofessional meltdown. The co-worker politely hinted that it might be awkward to have Amanda around. She felt trapped, humiliated, unsure how to rebuild a life from these ashes. One afternoon, as Elaine was out running errands and Ivan was at the office, Amanda ventured onto the back patio. She found a small plastic chair, sat down, and stared at the patch of lawn. A swirl of guilt, regret, and sadness roiled in her chest. She whispered, "I wish I could tell Eric I'm sorry one more time." But she knew it wouldn't matter. Elaine and Yvonne hosted a simple dinner: pasta, salad, bread. Todd and Amanda joined them at the table. The atmosphere was stiff, forced politeness giving way to uncomfortable silences. In the middle of the meal, Todd frowned at Elaine's phone, which buzzed with a message. "Is that Eric again?" he asked, tone laced with bitterness. Elaine glanced at him. "No, it's just a friend. But yes, Eric does message me sometimes. We're still close friends, and he's my husband's colleague." Amanda fiddled with her fork, guilt flickering across her face. Todd glowered, pushing away from the table. "I'm not hungry." He stormed off to the living room, leaving the others exchanging worried looks. Ivan shook his head. "Sorry," he muttered to Amanda, "but I won't coddle him." She sighed, shoulders slumping. "It's fine. Thanks for dinner anyway." Elaine reached over, squeezing Amanda's hand lightly. "Hang in there." But Amanda sensed this tenuous arrangement might not last. Todd's resentment was a ticking bomb, and Elaine's hospitality had limits. The specter of Eric loomed over them all, a silent reminder of who truly held power. Days later, Eric's phone rang. He recognized Benedict Krause's number. The potential European investor. Eric answered smoothly, expecting final negotiations. "Eric," Krause said in lightly accented English, "I have a proposition. I'm hosting a gala event in Berlin next month with key players from the European theme park circuit. It'd be an ideal place for safari replicas to shine. Why not come and present your brand on stage?" Eric's mind flicked to the newly minted plans for expansion. "That's interesting. A showcase in front of your partners?" "Yes, exactly. You'd give a short presentation, maybe show some prototypes. It might seal our deal and attract more allies for your venture." Eric smiled. This was the kind of global platform he'd dreamt of. A chance to overshadow the memory of Todd's betrayal with massive success. "I'd be honored. Count me in." He hung up, adrenaline surging. Berlin. A chance to spread his wings internationally. He quickly texted Ivan the news, who responded with a series of excited emojis. Plans for the trip began forming in Eric's head. That's the future, my future. Far from Todd's drama. That same afternoon, Todd rummaged in the living room while Ivan was at work and Elaine ran errands. He searched for anything that might give him an edge, flipping through an old binder on a shelf labeled Safari Replicas. He found worthless brochures, staff meeting notes. Then he noticed a more recent folder inside, marked Expansions. His curiosity piqued. Todd opened it. The first page read, Potential European Partnership. He skimmed, heart pounding. Mentions of Krause, an event in Berlin, big numbers. The rest was dense business jargon, enough to confirm that Eric was about to strike gold overseas. Todd's teeth ground together. While I'm rotting in the guest room, Eric's about to become an international mogul. Anger coursed through him. He slammed the folder shut, feeling a swirl of envy and hate. When Amanda came in, he showed her the folder. "See this? Eric's going big in Europe. He's never been content with local success. He's probably bragging about how he crushed me. Meanwhile, we're living off charity." Amanda paled. "Todd, put that back. Ivan might get angry if he sees you snooping." He scowled. "Who cares? Let them get angry. Eric's living the high life, expanding his empire." Amanda sighed, shaking her head. "Yes, Eric's unstoppable. We lost. Accept it." Todd's expression darkened further. He felt a perverse desire to sabotage Eric's triumph. But how? He had no resources. He replaced the folder hastily, not noticing that a single page slipped free, drifting under the couch. As the days wore on, Todd's presence grated on Ivan's nerves. He caught Todd rummaging again, this time in the garage. Amanda tried to keep peace, but Todd's resentment only escalated. Elaine dreaded the tension, worried an explosive confrontation loomed. One evening, Todd confronted Ivan in the kitchen, voice trembling with pent-up rage. "You think you're better than me, Carter? Just because Eric anointed you CFO, left me in the dust?" Ivan's jaw twitched. "I am better because I didn't betray Eric. I didn't break moral and legal boundaries for personal gain." Todd's eyes flared. He slammed his hand on the counter, making a knife clatter. "I'll bet you're enjoying this. Me? Humiliated? Living off your scraps?" Ivan shot back. "I take no joy in it, but you forced our hand." Now either calm down or get out. Todd clenched his fists. The moment crackled with raw hostility. Amanda rushed in, stepping between them, tears brimming. "Stop it, both of you!" Ivan glared at Todd. "Enough! We gave you a week. That week is almost up." Todd wavered, rage giving way to a fleeting panic. He had no other place to go. Amanda sobbed, burying her face in her hands. The standoff ended with Todd stomping away, leaving Amanda in the middle of the kitchen, apologizing to Ivan. The tension in the house soared to near breaking. With only 2 days left before they had to leave Elaine and Ivan's house, Todd felt cornered. He rummaged through his meager belongings in the living room, cursing. No money, no job prospects. Amanda threatened to leave him if he picked a fight with Ivan again. Then Todd recalled the fiasco with the caretaker's cottage, the memory fueling a wild notion. What if I confronted Eric directly, forced him to give me a lump sum so I can vanish? A blackmail scenario. Todd had the skill to spin a sob story or threaten Eric with something. But what leverage did he have? He paced the living room, scanning the dusty folder labeled Expansions. Wait, maybe I can sabotage Eric's Berlin event if he doesn't pay me off, or threaten to show up and crash it. A half-baked plan took form in his mind, a desperate ploy to extort money from Eric. He'd pay to avoid public embarrassment in front of European investors. That night, Todd stealthily texted a shady contact from his marketing days, someone who might help him disrupt an event. He typed, "Need to crash a gala in Berlin next month. Possibly sabotage a client's pitch. Payment after the job. Interested?" The contact eventually responded. "Could be done. Will cost you." Todd's lips twisted. He had no money, but if he could blackmail Eric for a chunk of cash first, yes, that might work. He was playing with fire, but desperation overshadowed caution. Meanwhile, Eric pinned down final details with Krauss for the Berlin Gala. He planned a small traveling exhibit showcasing Safari Replica's best animatronic designs, plus a new line of augmented reality features. Ivan would handle stateside operations while Eric took a small team overseas. Elaine's home stifled under Todd's presence. Amanda tried to keep a low profile, offering to do chores, cook meals. Elaine's patience wore thin each time Todd snapped at her or rummaged in closets. The day of their departure loomed. One day before the deadline, Elaine found Amanda quietly packing a worn suitcase in the guest room. Amanda sniffled as she folded a threadbare sweater. "I don't know where we'll go tomorrow," she whispered. "Todd has some plan, but he won't tell me. I'm scared." Elaine's heart twisted. "You could try to find a women's shelter. Todd can do whatever he wants, but you can break away." Amanda stared at her with tear-stained eyes. "He's all I have left. I don't have family or friends who would take me in. I made this bed." Elaine squeezed Amanda's hand. "I hope you find some path forward that doesn't lead to more heartbreak." Amanda just nodded, eyes distant. In a quiet corner of the living room, Todd smirked at his phone, reading a message from his shady contact. He typed a final note. "I'll have the funds soon. Just be ready to disrupt that event in Berlin." The ultimatum arrived quickly. Elaine and Ivan insisted Todd and Amanda leave by noon on Friday. That morning, the tension was palpable. Todd, his face set in a grim mask, stuffed his few clothes into a cheap duffel. Amanda clutched a smaller bag, eyes darting around the living room where they'd spent nights of uneasy sleep. Elaine hovered, arms crossed, warring with guilt and relief. "You can't stay. We've done all we can." "I'm sorry." Todd nodded curtly, refusing to meet her gaze. "We appreciate the couch anyway." His tone was hollow. Ivan, standing by the door, said quietly, "Here." He held out a $50 bill. "It's all I can spare. Use it to get somewhere safe." Amanda stared at the money. Her eyes welled. "Thank you." Todd swallowed his pride, taking the bill with a murmured, "Thanks." And that was it. No tearful goodbyes, no final blowout argument. Elaine held the door as Todd limped outside, Amanda trailing, the crisp morning air stinging. Ivan closed the door behind them, exhaling a huge sigh. From behind the window, Elaine watched Todd and Amanda slowly disappear down the suburban street, carrying their entire lives in battered duffels. A pang of regret flickered, but she reminded herself there was nothing more she could do. They made it halfway to a nearby bus stop before Todd turned to Amanda, voice low and urgent. I have a plan. We're going to corner Eric at the airport before he flies to Berlin. Then we threaten to sabotage his big gala if he doesn't pay us off. Amanda froze, horror in her eyes. Todd, that's insane. We have no real leverage. He scowled. We do. I know enough about Eric's upcoming deals, who his potential investors are. If we cause a scene or leak some manufactured scandal, we could ruin his big debut in Europe. He'll pay to keep it quiet. She stared at him, trembling. You're talking blackmail, sabotage, that's criminal. Eric will crush us. We'll end up in jail. Todd's jaw tightened. Eric's the reason we're in this mess. If we play nice, we rot. If we push him, we might walk away with some money to start over. Amanda shook her head, tears glistening. He'll never forgive us if we do that. Or help us. Todd snorted. He already hates us. We have nothing to lose. She closed her eyes. The memory of Eric's cold gaze haunted her. Would this push him to actual vengeance? But Todd looked so determined, so consumed by resentment. She lacked the energy to fight. All right, but I don't like it. He sighed. Neither do I, but I see no other way. We'll wait for the right moment, then corner him. I found out from some notes at Ivan's place that Eric's flight leaves next Thursday night from the main airport. Amanda's stomach churned. She sensed they were crossing a final line. Please, let this not end in disaster. At Safari Replica's HQ, Eric oversaw final packing of the demonstration modules destined for Berlin. Crates of elaborate mechanical creatures, the new line of animatronic big cats, a baby elephant model, plus AR headsets piled in the loading bay. Ivan ensured the shipping documents were in order, beaming with pride. Eric forced a smile, though a nagging tension in his gut wouldn't quit. Something about Todd and Amanda being in the wind unsettled him. But he focused on the excitement of forging an international alliance that would overshadow any personal drama. This is my chance to prove that betrayal can't break me. He spent hours rehearsing his speech for the gala, how Safari Replica's technology merges lifelike models with cutting-edge AR, revolutionizing the theme park experience. The presentation glowed with promise, and Benedikt Krause had teased a potential multi-million-dollar partnership from a German conglomerate. That night, as Eric locked up his office, he took a moment to stare at Todd's old desk, now empty. You're gone, he murmured to the darkness, and I'm still here. I won. The words felt hollow but comforting. Sabrina had been quietly tailing Todd and Amanda's movements when possible, ensuring no direct threat to Eric. She discovered they were staying at a cheap motel near the bus station for a few nights, presumably on leftover cash from Ivan. Todd's phone calls to unknown contacts raised suspicion. She reported to Eric briefly, "They're lying low. Todd's still making calls, though I can't confirm content. I suspect he's plotting something." Eric's tension flared. Plotting what? They have no resources. Sabrina sighed. Desperation breeds risk. Watch your back, especially with your Berlin trip. Todd might try to sabotage your big moment. A flash of anger lit Eric's eyes. He tries anything. I'll bury him deeper. Thanks, Sabrina. Keep an eye out. She hung up, worried for her friend. She'd seen men like Todd escalate from petty bitterness to destructive acts. Eric better remain cautious. Time raced by. Soon it was Thursday morning, the day Eric would fly to Berlin. He arrived at the office in crisp business attire, finalizing last-minute details with Ivan and the staff. The cargo shipments left earlier in the week, so Eric just had his personal luggage. Ivan gave him a handshake. Knock them dead, boss. I'll handle things here. Eric smiled. Thanks, Ivan. If all goes well, we'll sign a huge contract. Safari Replicas becomes a global brand. He left mid-afternoon to beat rush-hour traffic to the airport. Sabrina had arranged a private car for him, but Eric insisted on driving himself, wanting a sense of autonomy. He'd park in long-term parking, meet Krause's liaison at the check-in. No need to complicate matters. Todd stood behind a pillar in the busy departure terminal, cane in hand. Amanda hovered next to him, face pale. They'd staked out a vantage point near the security checkpoint, waiting for Eric. Their hearts hammered with every wave of travelers passing by, families hugging goodbye, business people tapping on phones. The overhead announcements droned about flight schedules. Amanda's nails dug into her palm. Are you sure this is wise? We have no guarantee Eric will fold. Todd's eyes glinted with angry resolve. He will. He's about to board an international flight for the biggest deal of his life. If we threaten a public scene or to sabotage something, he'll pay to avoid disaster. She squeezed her eyes shut, as if steeling herself. All right, but if he calls the cops, we'll be arrested. He took a shaky breath. Then we'll threaten to reveal something damning, like we'll claim he orchestrated a sabotage or faked financial reports. Sure, it's a lie, but the scandal might overshadow his gala. He won't risk it. Amanda's stomach churned with dread. She whispered a silent plea that maybe Eric would show them mercy and just write a check. This is rock bottom. Around 5 p.m., Eric strolled into the terminal, rolling a carry-on bag. Dressed in a sharp suit, he scanned the crowd, looking for Krause's liaison. Todd felt a burst of hateful envy at Eric's confident stride. They stepped forward, intercepting him before security. Eric halted, stunned to see them. A mix of anger and wariness flickered across his face. What the hell are you doing here? Todd raised a hand. We need to talk. You have a flight in 2 hours, right? Eric's eyes narrowed. He noticed Amanda behind Todd, looking mortified. Get out of my way, Todd. I have no time for your nonsense. Todd blocked Eric's path, ignoring the curious stares of passers-by. You do have time, or we'll cause a scene you won't forget. Eric's jaw clenched. Is that a threat? Todd's lip curled. We know how important this trip is. If you don't want me blabbing to the press that you've been using unethical labor or rigging finances, whatever story I concoct, then you'd better hear us out. Amanda flinched at the blatant blackmail. Eric's eyes blazed with fury. You're insane! Everyone will know you're lying, Todd. I have a spotless record. Todd shrugged. A public scandal can tarnish even the cleanest image. Your precious investors might get skittish. You can't risk that, can you? Amanda choked out. We're desperate, Eric. We just need some money to get on our feet. We'll leave you alone forever, I promise. Eric's fist tightened around his bag handle. The nerve of them, after all he'd done giving them that cottage, the groceries, letting them stay at Elaine's. Now they dared to blackmail him. He forced a low, dangerous calm. You think I'll bow to your extortion? You have no real evidence. I can call security, get you both arrested for harassment. Todd's voice trembled with pent-up rage. Then do it. But by the time they arrive, I'll shout out how you sabotaged me, how you faked documents, how your expansions are built on stolen ideas. People love a scandal, and you'll miss your flight or be stuck explaining yourself. A swirl of onlookers began to gather, curious about the tense standoff. Eric's mind raced. I can't afford a meltdown here. The entire Berlin deal might be overshadowed if I get detained or smeared. He glared at them. How much? Todd's shoulders eased. 50 grand. Cash or a quick transfer. That's enough for us to vanish. Start anew. Amanda swallowed, tears brimming. But she didn't contradict Todd. She whispered, Please, Eric, we're at the end of our rope. Eric's heart pounded. The idea of giving them that money felt like letting the devil win. But if he refused, Todd might cause a public fiasco. Damn it. He looked around, noticing security officers eyeing them from a distance. The last thing he wanted was a scene. I have to neutralize them quickly. Fine, he hissed. We'll do this quietly. Follow me. He marched them to a quieter corner near some empty seating, away from the main foot traffic. Sabrina's warning echoed in his mind. This is the desperation scenario. Once secluded, Eric faced them with cold fury. You want 50 grand? That's more than you ever contributed to the company. You're scum. Todd's eyes flickered. We either get the money, or we sink your moment in Europe. Pick one. Eric's phone buzzed, likely Krause's liaison texting about check-in. He had to resolve this quickly or risk missing the flight. I can do a wire transfer if I have my laptop, but that's at home. Next option is a bank run, which I have no time for. Todd frowned. I guess a partial wire from your phone banking could work, or give us a signed check. Eric snorted. A check? Then you'll have my account details. No. He paused, thinking. I might do an immediate wire from my phone's banking app, but I need to confirm your account details. Amanda inhaled. Yes, we can give you Todd's new account. Eric bristled at the thought. He stared at them, an upwelling of disgust. Once you get this money, you vanish. You never contact me, Elaine, or anyone from Safari Replicas again. Understood? Todd nodded eagerly. Deal. Amanda nodded too, tears slipping down her cheeks. We're sorry it's come to this, but we're out of choices. Eric whipped out his phone, logging into his banking app with trembling hands. He typed furiously, ignoring the knot in his stomach. This is insane. I'm paying extortion to my traitorous brother. He typed in Todd's account routing. Then he paused. 50,000, right? Fine. He hovered over the confirm button, feeling like every fiber in his body rebelled. Don't let them extort you. But missing the flight might cost you millions, overshadow your brand, cause humiliating headlines. He exhaled, thumb hovering. Suddenly, a calm overcame him an idea. He pressed confirm. Todd's phone dinged after a moment. Todd grinned, checking the balance. It's there. Eric pocketed his phone, voice taut. Now, get out of my sight. Amanda mumbled a broken, thank you, wiping tears. Todd gave Eric a final sneer. You'll never see us again. Good luck in Berlin. They turned, disappearing into the crowd. Eric stood, shaking with adrenaline, a swirl of rage and relief. They won this round, or did they? Eric strode to the security line, heart pounding. He fumed at the betrayal of his own principles. But as he pulled out his phone, a tiny smile crept over his lips. They forgot I'm a master of finance. He'd recalled a seldom-used feature, a scheduled transfer set to revert unless confirmed within 48 hours. He'd effectively put a hold on the money. The account Todd gave him would see the deposit initially, but the funds wouldn't truly clear. Within 48 hours, the transaction would bounce back due to a processing error. Todd would be left with nothing after a short window. Eric's eyes hardened. Todd might blow the money in that short time, but it wouldn't fully clear. The bank would chase them. A final twist of the knife. They'll think they've scored, only to find the rug pulled again. He passed through security, checking his watch. I'll be in Berlin by then. Todd can't touch me. Meanwhile, Todd hustled Amanda outside to a waiting taxi. He showed her the phone screen. Balance! $50,000! We did it, Amanda! He let out a disbelieving laugh. Amanda's shoulders slumped with relief. Oh, thank God. We can finally breathe. Todd directed the taxi to a mid-range motel. We'll book a nicer place, figure out a plan, maybe get out of the state, start fresh. Amanda nodded, tears of cautious joy in her eyes. She texted Elaine a quick note. We got help. We're leaving town. Thank you for everything. She felt guilty about blackmail, but desperation overshadowed shame. They arrived at the motel, paying for a week in advance. The clerk frowned at the initial card acceptance, but confirmed it. Todd and Amanda sank onto the bed in relief. 50 grand. Enough to vanish. At the gate, Eric forced himself to focus on the upcoming pitch. A swirl of emotions roiled. Shock at having nearly caved to Todd's sabotage. Satisfaction that Todd's victory would be short-lived. He boarded the flight, ignoring the guilt clawing at his chest. If Todd truly believed he'd won, only to discover the money gone, would he lash out again? Possibly. But Eric would be across the ocean, forging new success. The time for illusions was over. In his business class seat, Eric gazed out the window as the plane taxied. This is it. No more letting them impede me. They wanted to sink me, but I outplayed them. The plane roared down the runway, lifting into the sky. Eric leaned back, eyes closing, the tension slowly unraveling. Just after midnight, while Todd and Amanda slept in their motel bed, the bank's automated system flagged the pending transaction. By morning, it triggered a partial reversal due to an unverified schedule. The funds froze. The new, available balance Todd saw was an illusion. 8 hours after the deposit, Todd discovered the hold. He raged at the motel manager who demanded payment. Todd tried calling the bank's helpline, but he lacked the proper codes. By the time the afternoon sun rose high, the clerk told Todd the card was invalid. They threatened to call the police if he didn't produce valid payment. Amanda sobbed, realizing Eric had tricked them. Todd howled in fury, cursing Eric's name. They were forced onto the street once more, $50,000 so close yet out of reach. Eric soared over the Atlantic unencumbered, leaving them in chaos. A week later, Berlin, Germany. The lavish Europa Center glittered with modern architecture, hosting the exclusive gala for theme park investors. A red carpet entrance greeted VIPs, while inside, an opulent ballroom bustled with top executives, journalists, and industry enthusiasts. Eric Hawkins arrived in a tailored suit, exuding a calm confidence that belied his recent chaos. He'd rehearsed his presentation meticulously. The cutting-edge animatronics shipped safely, the AR demos set up in a side room. Benedict Krause greeted him warmly, leading him into the swirl of chatter. "Herr Hawkins, everyone's excited for your demonstration. I've told them about your unique synergy of mechanical design and augmented reality." Eric smiled politely. "Thank you, Mr. Krause. I'm eager to show them what Safari replicas can do." Backstage, under the sparkling chandeliers, Eric took a moment to center himself. He thought fleetingly of Todd's meltdown in the airport. "They can't touch me now." His phone buzzed with messages from Ivan reporting new contract signings back home. Everything was aligning perfectly. He stepped onto the stage amid applause. Lights illuminated him, the hush of an influential crowd sending adrenaline surging through his veins. This was his moment, Eric Hawkins, unstoppable force, showcasing the future of theme park immersion. Eric's voice projected across the ballroom, accompanied by sleek visuals on a massive screen. He unveiled how Safari replicas integrated lifelike animatronics with AR headsets, enabling visitors to see virtual habitats around the mechanical beasts. He showed short clips of children petting an AR cub, hearing realistic roars, forging emotional connections. The audience gasped at the potential for education and entertainment. Investors murmured excitedly, scanning brochures. Krause beamed, standing near the stage. Eric concluded with a vision. "We bring authenticity and wonder to modern parks. Families crave experiences that feel real, yet magical. With our technology, you can walk among virtual savannas or prehistoric jungles. The future is here." Thunderous applause erupted. A wave of relief and pride rushed through Eric. He'd done it. Risen above Betrayal, soared to an international stage. Todd's sabotage attempt was a whimper. Krause took the mic, praising Eric's innovation. Potential partners approached, offering business cards, praising the demonstration. The swirl of enthusiasm felt like a redemption arc for Eric's battered spirit. After the formal session, a celebratory reception commenced, with champagne flutes and gourmet hors d'oeuvres. Eric mingled with high-level execs from France, Germany, the UK, each praising his vision. Benedict Krause clinked his glass with Eric's. "That was magnificent, my friend. I think you'll find eager investors among these guests. Let's talk tomorrow about finalizing our partnership." Eric's chest brimmed with satisfaction. He took a sip of champagne, the effervescence a sweet contrast to the bitterness he'd tasted for months. "I'm free. I'm forging a new legacy." The conversation drifted to expansions, timelines, potential theme park collaborations. Eric's mind soared. He felt the old ambition reignite in a pure way, untarnished by Todd's betrayals. Back in the States, Todd raged, pacing the filthy motel parking lot. The partial freeze or reversal on Eric's deposit had left them effectively penniless again. The motel kicked them out, no refunds. Amanda's eyes were red from crying, exhaustion etched on her face. They had nowhere to turn. Todd's shady contact refused to help sabotage Eric's event without upfront payment. Furious, Todd realized any chance to strike at Eric's Berlin gala was gone. They were stuck. Amanda slumped against the building's wall, voice trembling. "We lost. It's over. We have to accept it." Todd's anger crackled, but a heavy hopelessness weighed on him. "Damn it, Eric pulled a fast one," she sniffed. "He's always been smarter with finances. We never stood a chance." Todd's mind spun. Where do we go? Who do we beg now? But no solutions emerged. Their phones soon ran out of battery. The street glowed with neon signs flickering in the gloom. Todd realized with a hollow dread that they might be homeless, truly and irrevocably. Amanda pressed her face into her palms. "I can't do this anymore." Todd shut his eyes. He'd burned every bridge. He felt the final, crushing weight of utter defeat. Elaine found out through a cryptic phone call from Amanda's old co-worker that Todd and Amanda were drifting near a homeless shelter. Moved by pity, Elaine quietly arranged with the shelter to sponsor them for a limited time. She didn't tell Eric. The shelter admitted them for a short stay, subject to strict rules: no violence, mandatory chores, a few shared cots. Amanda clung to Todd for emotional support, but Todd felt a crushing shame. One morning, while distributing donated clothes, a shelter volunteer recognized Amanda from her old marketing job. Amanda's eyes brimmed with humiliation. She'd come so far down. Todd overheard the volunteer whispering about Eric Hawkins, the big boss. He clenched his fists but remained silent. No more fighting. We lost. Period. A week after the gala, Eric flew back to the States triumphant. The Berlin event had exceeded expectations. Krauss was drafting a large contract. Another major investor from the UK expressed keen interest in a future collaboration. Safari Replicas was on the cusp of global prominence. Ivan picked him up from the airport. In the car, Eric recounted the success. Ivan grinned ear to ear. "That's incredible, Eric. You did it." Eric leaned back in the seat, letting the city skyline come into view. "Yes, I did." He recalled Todd's blackmail in the airport and the cunning reversal. They must have realized by now the money was fake. Ivan hesitated. "So any word from Todd or Amanda since you left?" Eric's mouth set in a line. "No. Probably for the best. Let them stew." Ivan frowned. "I heard from Elaine they're in dire straits, possibly a shelter." A flicker of something pity crossed Eric's face. Then he hardened. "They blackmailed me. I gave them a final gift of false hope. That's the end of it. I'm done." Ivan nodded, focusing on the road. "All right, understood." Later that day, Sabrina visited Eric's office. She debriefed him on Todd and Amanda's apparent meltdown at the motel, the discovered truth about the wire reversal, and their subsequent disappearance into a shelter system. He listened in silence. A swirl of complicated emotions stirred, but his face remained stoic. "So they're basically at rock bottom?" Sabrina nodded. "Yes, I don't think they can muster any more threats. They're spent." Eric stared at the cityscape beyond the window. "Good. That's enough." He rose, clasping Sabrina's shoulder. "Thanks for everything. You can stand down now. I doubt they'll trouble me again." She studied his face. "Are you sure you're okay? Revenge can leave a hollow spot." He forced a small, weary smile. "I'll survive. I have a new horizon. Todd and Amanda forced me to see how strong I could be." She patted his arm gently and left. Eric sank into his chair, gazing at the reflection of a man who had exacted the ultimate revenge, but paid with scars no one else could see. At least they can't hurt me anymore. In the following weeks, Safari Replicas soared. Press releases announced the prospective European deals, praising Eric Hawkins for his cutting-edge vision. The stock soared for the private investors. Rumors of a possible public listing circulated. Elaine informed Amanda she couldn't provide more help, having already arranged the shelter. Amanda thanked her tearfully via text. Todd never responded, presumably seething with shame. Ivan managed the daily operations. Elaine reverted to a normal routine. Sabrina withdrew from any close surveillance. The fiasco quietly faded from daily conversation, replaced by talk of expansions and success. One evening, Eric found himself alone in his penthouse, flipping through old photos on a hidden drive. Wedding pictures with Amanda, hugging Todd, their smiles wide, an air of innocence. A wave of sorrow tinged with final acceptance coursed through him. He scrolled to more recent pictures, him signing a partnership agreement with Krauss in Berlin, shaking hands with European dignitaries. His grin was genuine, an achievement forged from the ashes of betrayal. "I overcame." He closed the laptop. "That's my life now." The ring from his marriage to Amanda lay in a small box in the drawer. He considered it for a moment, then quietly placed it in a trash bag. No more illusions. Todd and Amanda remained in the homeless shelter for a month, drifting between day labor jobs. Todd's ankle recovered, but his spirit seemed permanently fractured. They eventually left the city, rumors saying they hitchhiked west, chasing some vague lead on temporary farm work. Their phone lines disconnected. They vanished into oblivion, each day a struggle for survival. Eric pressed on with unstoppable focus, finalizing the huge contract with Kraus. Safari Replicas began building a full-blown European subsidiary. The brand soared in popularity, hailed as an innovative tech giant in the entertainment industry. He never remarried quickly, still nursing hidden wounds, but he found solace in traveling for business, forging new alliances, living a life free of illusions. Some nights he wondered if he'd ever truly love or trust again. But the scars reminded him that loyalty, once broken, was not easily restored. On a crisp autumn evening, months later, Eric stood in the main production warehouse, the clang of machinery echoing. A new animatronic tiger model roared softly, testing its range of motion. He ran a hand over the synthetic fur, marveling at how real it felt. He recalled the savage disappointment of Todd's betrayal, Amanda's deceit. That chapter's closed. He sighed, a lingering ache in his chest, but no tears. He'd done his mourning. The overhead lights hummed. The shadows of the mechanical tiger danced on the walls. He thought of the predator within him that had unleashed a meticulously cruel revenge, and now I live with it. He turned off the test system, the warehouse plunging into quiet. Outside, the city lights twinkled. He breathed the cool air, whispered to himself, "I survived." The hush offered no reply, but the faint stir of confidence in his heart told him he'd move forward, forging new successes, leaving Todd and Amanda as distant ghosts in the wake of his unstoppable ambition.